Good evening, everyone. I'm hereby calling the June 17th Committee of the Whole meeting to order at 6 o'clock. And so since we have a full gallery, I wanted to take advantage of just a chance to let folks know what a Committee of the Whole meeting is about. It differs from a regular council meeting in that there are no decisions made at this meeting. The intent of the Committee of the Whole is for council to be able to gather information and in a different type of forum. At this point, there's no opportunity for members of the public to ask questions. I believe most of our audience here today are for the item 5A, the Glenbow Dam East option. I certainly recognize a great number of the Glenbow Ranch Park Foundation members and advocates, and it's great to see you all for coming out for this item. So I just wanted to share that little bit of information. I am the acting deputy mayor right now, and so during the duration of being the deputy mayor, which we switch up as a council, the deputy mayor takes a turn chairing the Committee of the Whole meetings, which is why I am chairing this meeting tonight. And yeah, and I'm assuming most of you are here for the Glenbow Dam and not the event fees item, which, no? Okay, I won't move that one up ahead. But anyhow, so with that being said, welcome everyone. I understand there's been chairs set up on the other side of the glass, and the audio is being set up as well. So if for any of those folks that are standing, you will be able to hear and see everything from outdoors. So looks like we're good to go. Anyway, welcome again, and we will kick this off. So then moving on from there, we are going to move on to item 2A, the adoption of the agenda. So I'll ask one of my colleagues to make a motion to accept the agenda, or to move the agenda. Councillor Reid.
Also move the agenda as adopted, as presented.
Excellent. All in favor? That's passed unanimously. Okay, now we are moving on to the adoption of the previous minutes, and I'll ask one of my colleagues to put the motion on the floor to adopt the minutes. Councillor Flowers.
I will make the motion to approve the minutes from the June 3rd, 2024 COW meeting.
All in favor? That is passed unanimously. Excellent. We are no delegations tonight, so we are moving on to the item of the evening, business 5A, the Glenbow Dam East option, calling forward Mr. Chris Nielsen, the community consultant from Urban Systems, but I see our CAO, Mr. Mike Darracott, at the podium to start.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We'll get to Chris here just momentarily. I just thought I would just set the stage here for council, and seeing as how you kind of stole my joke, I was thinking more they were here for, I heard some rumors there was the procedural bylaw that really got the community excited, but no question that the Bull River Reservoir project that the province is considering is a consequential one for our region, and in particular, several of the options could be quite consequential for our community. And so we do have Chris Nelson with Urban Systems, who we've asked to do a really high level review in order to share with council some of the potential impacts of the proposed east project, which would be east of Cochrane, and the one that would potentially have the most impact. And so I will turn it over to Chris, who will be happy to share the presentation with you and then answer questions of a technical nature, although he'll probably reiterate this. They have not done a deep dive technical review. It's a high level overview of the technical information already released by the province. And then I'll be happy to speak again with council afterwards in terms of helping council towards consideration of taking a position that we can share with the province on the project. So, Chris.
Thank you very much, Mr. Darracott.
Thank you, Mr. Darracott. Good evening, Deputy Mayor, members of council. Thanks for the opportunity to share our brief memo on the impacts to the town of Cochrane of the reservoir options being considered. So, as many will be aware, in 2017, the Bull River Working Group recommended exploring 3 options on the Bull River upstream of the city of Calgary. And this was really focused on to enhance flood and drought storage, mitigating severe weather impacts on Albertans, and minimizing impacts on the economy. In 2018, the Alberta government launched the Bull River Reservoir Option, BRRO as it's referred to, a project to examine potential reservoir options located at Morley, relocated Ghost Dam, and the Glenbow East reservoir options. It's just a figure here showing those. I'm sure everyone has seen this many times. The approach the province is taking is a 4-phased approach. The first phase was completed in 2020, and that was a conceptual assessment. And that was the basis of our review for the impacts of the town of Cochrane, and we'll get into that a bit in the subsequent slides. Phase 2 is a feasibility study that's underway right now and expected to finish by the end of 2024. Phase 3 and Phase 4 are more focused on the preferred option, obviously if the province selects one, and then the engineering, regulatory, and all those different pieces that come along with construction to do that. As you can see along the bottom there is a timeline of those different phases. The province is intending to make a decision around what the preferred option by the end of this year. The scope of our review, and I appreciate Mr. Turcotte kind of emphasizing this, it's a high-level review. So what was included was we reviewed the Glenbow East option only. We didn't compare it to the other options. We just looked at the Glenbow East option and the impacts to the town of Cochrane. And it's a preliminary identification of the impacts to the town. So we've identified, based on our understanding of the infrastructure, your future plans, existing and future, what that could look like. It is not a detailed technical analysis at this point. That might be the intent for council to go down that course and or request the province to demonstrate that technical analysis, because a lot of these pieces will require a much further detailed review than you're going to be provided today, for sure, to understand the potential and the impacts to the full extent. These here are just a couple of different terms that are used throughout the document that are important, just for everyone to appreciate. The reservoir elevations, there's kind of two different elevations that are referred to in the conceptual assessment done by the province. The first one is the FAS, which is the flood attenuation storage. So this is a maximum reservoir level under the design flood event. So if there's a major event, that's what it was expected that the level would go to. So that would be, again, what the projections would indicate in their modeling. The top of the dam elevation, that's 2.5 meters higher, which is kind of the freeboard, allows for some buffer. So if you had a major event plus some more, then you would start to reach higher elevations closer to that top of the dam that they're proposing in this option. From a spatial perspective, it's 19 kilometers long is the extent of the potential reservoir, and then about 1,050 hectares in surface area. This is a snippet from the conceptual assessment, and we've bolded just some key pieces I think to be alive to for the town. What's indicated there at the FAS level again, which is kind of that max flood attenuation storage level, is that there are minimal or no impact on residential areas along the riverbanks within Cochrane. And it does talk about some remedial work, but just kind of emphasize that there's minimal impacts. And again, I think through just a high-level analysis that we've provided, there are some impacts that need to be thought about and considered. And it does emphasize in the report that additional study is required to better establish acceptable maximum reservoir levels, so that might fluctuate. And this is really about the phase 2, I'm sure, in figuring that out and what those impacts would be to a fuller extent. But at this point, again, not knowing that, it's important that the town communicate where their biggest concerns might be if this option is to be pursued further. So these slides here, and the colors don't show up great here on the projector, but in the package, in the memo, we had a couple different images showing this. There is some significant potential risks here based on the flood elevations. And so we've taken the town's 2017 topographical information and then overlaid the extents of what the dark blue being the flood storage attenuation area, and then the lighter teal is when you reach the top of the dam, the 2.5 meters higher, and what the extents would look like with the current elevations within town of that reservoir option. So there is, at that point, there's some significant impacts to transportation infrastructure, namely James Walker Trail, so newly constructed road within town connecting to the newly constructed bridge. There also need to be some further assessments of what the impacts of this would do to your bridge structure, getting at higher and higher levels, what that would mean for the embankments, as well as the actual infrastructure. From a stormwater perspective, there's a number of ponds that would be potentially impacted by the extents of this. The Riviera Storm Pond to the south side of the river, as well as the Griffin Road Storm Pond, and then we do also have on the next graphic the Greystone Pond, which it's been developed now, but it's servicing future land, so we've kept it on this separate figure. But obviously the hydrology here will all increase and raise as the water rises up, which then potentially just doesn't allow for discharging your storm ponds under major events and could back up the stormwater infrastructure system, which could have impacts obviously on residents and businesses within the community. Water and wastewater infrastructure, some major infrastructure within this segment of town, some major wastewater infrastructure specifically, that carries a number of flows to your main transfer station, which then takes those flows and sends them to Calgary. So a number of these, both pipes as well as the transfer station, are within the different flood elevations. And so if you hit a critical event, they could be impacted. And you know, any infrastructure underground that would be inundated with water for an extended period of time could have some damage, as well as obviously impact to your flows. And then recreational amenities, Spray Lake Sawmill, Rec Center, there is a significant portion of the parking lot, as well as their storm pond, that would be impacted based on the different flood elevations, as well as plus or minus about 5.5 kilometers of your pathway system would be impacted by the different elevation extents, depending on the event. From a future development perspective, you know, we've overlaid here a couple of the neighborhood plans, Greystone approved in 2018, and Southbow before that. So we've overlaid those, and then overlaid an area structure plan amendment that has not yet been approved, but just wanted to give context for council around that as to what those impacts could look like. So there's a significant amount of infrastructure, some infrastructure that's impacted here as well, largely the storm ponds. For Greystone, you can see that would be fully within the elevation extent top of the dam. And again, that has a similar impact as that hydrology goes up. It would potentially back up the stormwater system, impacting that development area. And then for Southbow, those are two future ponds. They're fully within the flood attenuation storage area. And so those would need to be relocated to somewhere else, which would have an impact on the developable lands within that community. And obviously a lot of rework on their behalf to figure out how stormwater could function within their site. From a developable land area as well, the Robinson lands, which you can see there again, we've overlaid the conceptual amendments that are proposed. There's a lot of developable area there would be impacted, just not allowed to develop. And then recreational amenities, you know, obviously there's some pathways planned all along the riverfront there, but also a major lower bench area that was within the Southwell Landing ASP, or a neighborhood plan, sorry, that would provide a major amenity adjacent to the river would be within that flood attenuation storage area. So this, I think, provides, you know, just a snapshot again of what existing infrastructure may be impacted with these decisions at the province, from the province, as well as future plans which aren't contemplated within the work completed by the province. So suggest next steps. There's really two that we'd suggest. One is, you know, the town articulate concerns around potential impacts on existing and planned developments to the province, and that's, we're trying to create some visibility through the work that we've done around what those might look like. And the town requests the province fully evaluate, so providing that depth of technical analysis, any potential impacts to the town if the Glenbow East Reservoir location was to be pursued further. That technical analysis would be really important to fully appreciate what those extents of that infrastructure could be, and or other pieces of recreational amenities or developable land as that moves forward. With that concludes my presentation, but happy to answer any questions if council so wishes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nielsen. Looks like we have some questions already. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. Chris, good to have you back and see you here. I'm always impressed by the caliber of work done by Urban Systems. You know, I could quote from the Bow River Working Group. It says that, and this is a direct quote from their report, the reservoir options are intended to build additional flood and drought storage capacity along the Bow River to reduce the impacts of severe weather events on Albertans and the economy. You know, in reading your report, which I got last week and I've actually read over a couple of times, not only because it's very sobering in terms of the impact on our community, but the impact in terms of the region, as Mr. Durcott alluded to earlier. You know, and according to your initial report, the Glenbow East Dam option, as presented, actually does nothing for the town of Cochrane, absolutely nothing. If anything, and I'm concerned that, well, I'm sure that our colleagues in Calgary don't recognize that, but it actually pushes the Calgary problem to Cochrane. It pushes it upstream. And literally would cost this community, put it at high risk and cost us literally millions of dollars. You know, for me, I think aside from the huge implications for the Glenbow Ranch, which is a provincial treasure sitting in our own backyard, the Glenbow East Dam proposal does, as I say, nothing to protect Cochrane. It does nothing to do, has nothing to do with providing us with drought storage I say, literally will cost us millions of dollars. You know, again, simply moving the problem, Calgary's problem upstream to Cochrane doesn't answer the question. You know, so for those citizens who are here and those that would read in the paper and concerned about whether this town council takes this seriously or not, I think it's probably the most challenging problem or threat that we've faced as a council together. And clearly we take it very seriously, and we'll do whatever we can as a council, I would suggest, to be able to solve this problem. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Mayor Janung.
Yeah, thank you. Chris, would you mind to go back one slide, please? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Reid. You took exactly the note I had just taken. This option, in my mind, does not do anything to protect Cochrane. It actually puts Cochrane at risk. You've articulated that well. Something that I would like to build on is, I don't want to repeat everything that Councillor Reid said, but the potential impacts that you've outlined today at a very high level. So you're suggesting in next steps that we dig into that a little deeper so that we can formalize a position with the province, and I think we need to do that ASAP. I understand through conversations with Minister Guthrie, even as late as this past Friday, and I was asking him about this very thing. We've met about this a couple of times now. He has indicated that the ministry might be moving their decision point up into the early fall. So our timeline to provide impacts is shorter than maybe what we think. So I think we need to do that sooner rather than later. My question, I guess, is how long would that technical impact study take?
Yeah, through the chair to the mayor, I mean, I'd have to take that back to the team and really dive into that and how far you'd want to go. I'd also ask the question, should the town be responsible to do that technical analysis for something I think that is much more of a regional infrastructure piece that the province is exploring? Or, you know, more just to be able to review that and to have the confidence that they actually appreciate all the impacts that could be. So again, we'd be happy to take that away and provide maybe a time frame to Mr. Durcott. But I don't know if, who should be taking that step.
You're getting exactly to the point I'm trying to make, and thank you for making it for me. I don't think we actually need a technical study. We know now that there's going to be impacts. We know roughly what they are, and they're at a large magnitude. A letter outlining what our concerns are and outlining that there are significant costs, I think, is the important piece, not to the decimal point in what they might be. So I would hope that council can tonight, you know, we don't make decisions, but at least direct administration or give the impression to administration to start the next steps, that maybe at the next council meeting we can formally take that position. And at a very high level, I think that the province needs to hear now what the impacts to Cochrane are. And I think, as I've said, Councillor Reid has articulated it well, that it's an upstream problem now, not a downstream. And that's okay for 1.6 million people, but this growing community needs protection as well. So adopt a formal position. The metrics on the options I don't think are as detailed as what we need. And I think one of the things I would ask in that letter is in the estimates that the province is putting forward, and I see in all of them, they're close to, I think, $2 billion or $1 billion, I forget the number. But all three of the options, and there's two now, are relatively similar in cost. But do those costs include the cost to the municipality that were outlined here today? And that would be a question I would ask Minister Schultz in that position paper. So that's all my comments for now, but I do appreciate the opportunity to get in front of this and that we need to act now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Janung. Councillor Wilson, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I echo what we just heard from Alex and the mayor. Spot on your comments. I don't know if there's anybody in this room that thinks that there's anything beneficial to the town of Cochrane in this proposal. I'm quite disappointed to be here today. I was a member of the CMRB in 2018 when these three options were originally being shown to the group and evaluated on their merits. And at that time, I thought there's no chance Glenbow East would even be considered in the final analysis, just because there were so many problems with this Glenbow East option. And as the mayor just articulated, I'm concerned that the cost to our municipality is the main thing that hasn't been evaluated and considered when we're, when the provincially thinking about this as being a good option. I think this disrupts a lot of infrastructure, a lot of services, and a lot of things that will simply fall down to the town of Cochrane, and that's unacceptable. I thank the members in the gallery today, the Bow River Group, for being here and showing your support. And my very ill-informed opinion or mindset is that simply Glenbow East just hasn't had enough squeaky wheels saying no against it, and that's why we sit here as it being a potential option, because there hasn't been enough pushback. So I absolutely advocate for us having an unequivocal position as a town of Cochrane from this bench that we don't support this. This is a concerning proposal, and I'm all for whatever we can do to prevent and restrain it. Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Flowers.
I too agree that we need to get very noisy and be the squeaky wheel, because I had no idea what the impacts were going to be until we got this report. They're huge, and it's disappointing that the province is encouraging all these people to move to Cochrane and then messing up all our plans for James Walker Trail and all the things we've got planned for the future. Did you mention the Jack Tennant Bridge might be at risk?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Flowers. I think that's just something that we'd want to ask the province through the technical analysis. There's, as you bring that the river levels up, there could be impacts, right, to the bridge, to the embankments. There's ice jamming to be thinking about as well in the winters and what that does to your piers, and not just the Jack Tennant Memorial Bridge, but other bridges in town as well.
So many huge projects that we've been working on, and I really want to see the letter soon as we can and as strong as we can make it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flowers. Councillor Nagel, over to you.
Yeah, I think it's particularly interesting we're dealing with this issue before us when our own MLA is the Minister of Infrastructure, and our mayor mentioned that we need to be taking action in a position, and I certainly want to see that happen as well. And I think the first thing we need to be doing is putting together an open letter with our position, hopefully as soon as possible, and saying it to our MLA and taking a firm position. But this is very concerning. I have been up until just recently thinking that there were going to be much better options coming forward, and I'm disheartened to see that we're even having this conversation here today. So thanks to all the residents who are out here showing their support, and thanks to everybody on council who has already spoken up.
Thank you, Councillor Nagel. Mayor Genung?
Yeah, thank you. Just one thing I forgot to ask. In my discussions with Minister Guthrie, he highlighted that this was a federal process that the province has undertaken. Chris, can you speak to that at all? Did part of your analysis go into that?
No, through the chair to the mayor, no, we did not dive into that, but I've heard anecdotally the same thing as well. That certain option, number of options had to be reviewed to make sure that it meets those requirements, but we did not dive into that through our work.
Okay. Yeah, it still baffles me that a year after we're cutting the ribbon at Haskane Park, we're talking about flooding it. So, anecdotally, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, council members. I certainly stand with my colleagues in wanting to make sure that we express certainly a firm no to the province, that this is not a risk that Cochrane is prepared to take. And for a number of reasons, I certainly support that we send the letter and register our concerns, that we do request that the province speedily provide that technical analysis on their dime and not ours. And Chris, can you just confirm, I was just trying to quickly sort the cost of the infrastructure at risk. I mean, there's the cost of the bridge, quickly north of $100 million in infrastructure was my estimate.
Yeah, to Councillor McFadden, not something that we did through our analysis, but there's some significant pieces of infrastructure there for the town. I would not be surprised if you're in that range for sure.
Yeah, so in the letter, if we could kind of ballpark that and add it to the concerns, I mean, and those are funds that the municipalities invested in recent years that would be quickly washed away or flooded away in case this was ever a flood event that needed to be reacted to. So that would be my concern, is have the letter, provide some of that, what the actual cost to the municipality would be, that technical request, and then also to register, I think, for my part, the concern about the Glenbow Ranch provincial park, which, while not within our town boundaries, is an important part of our community, and it would be heartbreaking to see the great the vision of the Harvey family to be washed away, and all of the great work of many of the volunteers that I see in the crowd today that have committed hours and hours of work to that park and to making it a special place. And so those are my concerns. The risk to the provincial park is not allowed, the risk to the community, and the cost to the community as well. So those are my lenses on that. I certainly, Mr. Derricott, I'm sure you're going to assure us that there will be something brought to council at the next meeting.
Yeah, thank you. I'll take Chris out of that position where it will be administration that will be working to prepare that letter. Obviously, we will continue to work with Urban to support that with important information. And this was the hoped for outcome from the administrative perspective, that council would support taking a firm position that this there's a lot of concerning pieces in this. I will just note that the province still is in the evaluation phase, and so we are, I think, appropriately engaging this process to ensure that any decision is informed by that position from Cochrane. I will just note that I do think the impacts of this project are significant if it was to proceed east of our community, that this is a really relevant and important piece of regional infrastructure. And so I mean, the province exploring this in the broad sense, it is, I think, an important element to ensuring sustainability of not just Cochrane itself, but the broader region. And inside of that, we want to make sure that Cochrane's interests are considered appropriately. I am very appreciative, Deputy Mayor McFadden, of you mentioning that it's not necessarily just what is happening inside of the town boundaries proper, but also across at the park, where we've been blessed as a community to enjoy that for many years, and hope to for many years to come. But also, I would just add to that the exceptional work of the Great Trail project that's been going on in conjunction with the park, and Haskayne Park was also noted as these really exceptional regional amenities that I think are important components as part of this. But administration will be pleased to bring forward a letter containing the elements as discussed by council here for formal endorsement, and we can ensure that we get that to the appropriate provincial decision makers for consideration.
Okay. And just, I think, perhaps a last question, perhaps for clarification. So as a council, we are going to direct a response. Is there also a way we can communicate to the community that for many, like I know the Glenbow Ranch Park Foundation have done a great job elevating it. I've certainly been aware of this for a number of years, but this meeting may be the way that the majority of Cochranites have actually going to learn about it. Is there a way that we can help the community to understand who they should contact within the provincial government to register their concerns?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe it would be our intent to publicize, the letter broadly in our community as well, which would include information on how concerned residents can direct their concerns, again, to their MLA or to the appropriate provincial bodies for consideration as part of this. We wanted to ensure visibility on this for our community as part of this process, so we will be working to communicate that as broadly as we can.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Derricott. Colleagues, any last comments or questions? No? Excellent. All right, Mr. Derricott, Shielson, thank you very much for your presentation. Folks, thank you very much for joining our presentation tonight. We really appreciate your presence. We are now moving on to item 5B, which is budget engagement. You are welcome to stay for that, but if you like, I might take a couple minutes and let you respectfully leave. Could have told him it was event fees. I was just looking around. It was like, some of them, like council chambers renovation, I think people might have some opinions.
Thank you for deferring the event conversation.
All right, I really wish we had kept the crowd for the budget engagement presentation myself, but we will now move on to item 5B, budget engagement presentation from Kristen Hubrick, our Manager of Intergovernmental Relations and Corporate Communications. And I understand your presentation is also going to include information from Advantis as well.
That's correct.
Over to you.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor McFadden, Mayor Junong, and Council. I'm pleased to be here with you tonight to speak about the recently completed budget engagement, where we invited the community to have their say in Cochrane's budget planning process. This evening, I'm joined by Patrick Kaiba, Principal Consultant from Advantis. Mr. Kaiba will be providing a detailed presentation of their engagement findings as shared with you in your agenda package. Prior to inviting Mr. Kaiba to share this presentation, I wanted to provide a brief overview of the overall engagement strategy employed and the results. The public engagement process employed was structured similarly to the work completed in 2023, with the addition of an in-person component as requested by Council. From April 8th to May 8th, residents were provided with 4 different methods to provide their feedback. Randomized phone calls from Advantis through a set of landline and mobile telephone numbers, opting to provide feedback through a QR code link that was included on a postcard delivered to every household in Cochrane. This information was also directly coordinated through Advantis. An online survey posted to our public engagement platform, Let's Talk Cochrane, and in person at the Cochrane Trade Show, which was hosted at the Spray Lake Centre on May 4th and 5th. Our objective was to ensure that everyone had the opportunity to provide their input. This year, we had 191 randomized phone calls, surveys completed, as compared to 448 last year, 216 completed by the postcard QR code, as compared to 196 in the previous year, and 179 completed through our Let's Talk Cochrane platform, as opposed to 38 completed in 2023. I think this really demonstrates the value gains we're seeing in our Let's Talk Cochrane site and the way that people are starting to utilize it on a regular basis. The engagement was advertised in a variety of ways to make sure everyone was aware that they had the opportunity to participate. This included bold signs throughout the community, media relations, social media advertising, newspaper advertising, radio advertising, postcards that were mailed to every household, as referenced earlier, website content on both of our Cochrane.ca and our Let's Talk Cochrane sites, targeted emails sent out through the Let's Talk Cochrane email distribution list, as well as the business development newsletter, and the Spray Lake Centre email newsletter, our digital signs, and emails directly to the community associations. The results of the feedback collected through the Let's Talk Cochrane platform were attached to your report, and I'm now going to turn it over to Mr. Kaiba to present the results from Advantis.
Second one in. Thank you. Thank you, Chair and Council, for this opportunity to present the results from the 2025 Budget Planning Survey. The results I'm going to go over today are from what we call the general population. It's a statistically valid survey, so this will include the phone calls and the postcards that we made and sent out and people replied back in. And as was mentioned, either people used the QR code to send us a text message and we sent them a unique link to the survey, or we phoned people and invited them to do the survey online, and we would send them an email or a text message. Everyone could only complete the survey once per cell phone, so if you wanted to stuff the ballot box, you'd have to have multiple cell phones. In total, 407 surveys were completed through this method. As was mentioned, it was mostly through April and a bit of May. And so I'll get into the actual results here. So the first question that we asked was, with the taxes that residents pay, what type of value do they feel they receive? And we've got the 2 years here, 2023 on the left, 2024 on the right. You're going to see this trending quite a bit. The results are statistically identical, so that it's come down a little bit from 57 to 54, but statistically we would say that those are the same. And in total, 54% are receiving good, very good, or excellent value for the taxes that they pay. The top reasons we asked people why they felt the way that they did, the top reasons that were given for why they feel they receive positive value is that the town offers good level of service, the town overall is well maintained, infrastructure is well maintained, and the town recreation and parks and trails are really good. Among those who gave a fair or poor, we asked them why they felt that way, and the top reasons given were that they don't agree with the current spending practices, they would like to see specific services improved, and the town infrastructure they feel is not well maintained. We asked residents how much of their property taxes go to pay for education, because as I'm sure you are aware, that not all property taxes goes directly to the town. The true percentage was 32%, and only 5% of residents knew that. Most actually didn't have a clue, and they just said they weren't sure, and then there was a larger percentage, 16%, who gave less than about 30%, and then 10% who gave higher than 34%, with 13% getting pretty close. The survey mentioned to residents that the town is cognizant that there may be a desire to limit the amount of tax increases and possibly reducing service levels to maintain taxes where they are. And we wanted to know how strongly they support or oppose that position. So again, it's how strongly do you support or oppose maintaining taxes and reducing service levels to compensate. And this year you can see there was actually a statistically increase in the percentage of residents that support that. So again, that's residents supporting a decrease in service levels to maintain their taxes. Among those who said that they wanted to support, we asked them why, and the top reasons given were that they feel taxes are already high, decreasing some service, they would like to decrease some specific services, but not other services, and they support a decrease in services to try to keep taxes low. Among those who oppose that, they want, the top reasons that they provided were they want services to be maintained to avoid bigger problems in the future. They feel that the town could look for ways to be a little more efficient with money, and they prefer to maintain a high standard of living in the town. We also showed on the right-hand side here 4 options for how services and taxes could interact. So the options at the top there were to increase taxes to increase services, increase taxes to maintain services, so that's the cost of living effectively, maintaining taxes, but that would come at a decrease in services, and then decreasing taxes to decrease services even further. And you can see that the public is actually quite split. There is a quarter who say they want to increase taxes to increase the services that they receive. But in contrast, there's a quarter who say, let's maintain taxes and decrease some services. And again, another 20%, which is actually up from last year, who say, let's decrease services and decrease taxes that people pay. We then mentioned that there was the town's budget. There's a discretionary and non-discretionary portions of the budget. So that the non-discretionary portion are what's fixed and is going to be paid regardless. So that's for things like council, corporate services, and planning services. Whereas the 74% there for discretionary services, we then showed them the graph on the right, what percent of the money goes to each of the different 9 different services that you see here. And then we followed this up by asking for each of these services, would residents like council to increase funding, decrease funding, or keep it the same as it was last year? And so here's the results from that. So the green bar, or the olive bar on the left, is the percent of residents that would want to increase funding. The blue bar on the right is the percent that want to decrease funding, and then the green bar in the middle is the percent that want to keep the funding the same. And the big takeaway from this slide here is that the majority want to keep funding the same. The services that that the most people want increased budget are family and community support services, parks and open spaces, and roads. In contrast, the three services that residents feel, that the most residents feel funding should decrease are the transit, partner organizations, and municipal enforcement. So here we see the trending. I'll go through all 9 services here. For all 3 of these, you can see that effectively there's only one arrow, and the arrows are what indicate the statistical difference. So for roads, there's statistically more people who think that the funding should decrease. Whereas for all the other 3 here, or the other 2 that you see here, there's been no change in their sentiment. For family and community support services, again, for each of these, for the people who said they wanted to increase, we asked them why. And for people who said decrease, we asked them why. So the top reasons for wanting to increase family and community support services were to keep up with population growth and to help support affordable support services. Top reasons to decrease included that they would like more funding from other levels of government, and that they feel that the existing services in place should be able to handle the current population and foreseeable growth in the near future. For parks and open spaces, the top reasons given for increasing were to improve physical and psychological health and to better maintain existing parks and open spaces, as well as to make the town and neighborhoods more attractive, to be an attractive place for people to live. Top reasons for decrease among the 15% there who said to decrease, they felt that it's not an urgent spending area right now, and others felt that the maintenance was a little overdone. For roads, the top reasons to increase were to keep the roads better maintained, to provide more or better snow clearing equipment, and they would like a variety of improvements, including more roads, wider roads, and to combat traffic. Top reasons for decreasing were that they would like the roads cleaned less often in the winter, and consider maintaining the equipment that you have now rather than replacing it, and to consider cleaning the roads less often. Next, we see here, we've got transit, business development, and RCMP. Again, there's only one arrow, and that's for business development, where there's slightly fewer who feel that the funding should remain the same. Top reasons for the transit for increasing spending include that they would like to see more buses, routes, and frequent service. Other reasons include they would like fixed routes, and they would like to extend the hours of service. Top reasons given for decreasing the budget include that their household just doesn't use transit, so they don't see the value in it, as well as not needing the e-scooter or e-bike program, and that riders should be charged more for the service in their opinion. For business development, the top reasons for increasing, including supporting businesses to succeed and help the economy grow, to attract outside investment into Cochrane, and to support the small businesses. Supporting small businesses is important to the residents. Top reasons to decrease include to be better, money could be better spent for other services. Current business development meets the needs of the community, and because they think, again, it's not a priority in their opinion at this time. For the RCMP, top reasons to increase include to keep up with population growth and to keep crime down, as well as to have police more visible in the community. Reasons to decrease include that they feel the police presence that you have currently should be adequate, and that the police should spend less time focusing on traffic and other speeding type enforcements. Fire services is the only one on this slide where there's been a change, where there's been a bit of a increase in the number of people who would like spending to decrease, and fewer people who would like the spending to remain the same. Otherwise, municipal enforcement and partner organizations, statistically, there's no difference between this year and last year. Top reasons to increase funding for the fire services are to ensure that there's prevention and inspection services and emergency preparedness. Excuse me. As well as slightly more respondents would like to see, they feel it's an essential service to the community and to handle population growth and for the safety of residents. Top reasons to decrease include, again, spending. They feel money could be better spent on a different service within the community. They believe that the spending may not be, it may be higher than what the demand currently is. And they feel that the response times that fire services currently have is adequate. For municipal enforcement, the top reasons to increase spending include to keep up with population growth and to have more bylaw enforcement. Reasons for decrease include to focus less on traffic and speeding enforcement again, as well as they suggest that roadways, sidewalks, and pathways are safe enough. Finally, with the partner organizations, top reasons there that now it's very small, only 5% feel that it should increase, includes that they would support population growth, that it makes Cochrane an attractive place to live, and that they feel the facilities could use an update. Top reason among those 35% who say that they feel it should decrease includes that they feel the cost of these partnerships are larger than the benefits that they provide. There's a lack of accountability in the partners, and that Cochrane has enough facilities to meet the current needs of the citizens. Finally, near the end of the survey, we said here are 6 different priorities facing the town of Cochrane. Which of these would you suggest that town council should consider their top priority? And the top 2 that you can see here are long-term fiscal sustainability as well as planning for future growth. If you bucket these into those that are considered a little more tax-related, 56% want you to consider tax-related priorities. Well, if you look at those that are more long-term focused, which are long-term fiscal sustainability and planning and reacting to the economy, there's about a third there who feel that's the top priorities. The final question that we said is to residents, we said, is there anything else that you would like to pass on to council to consider in terms of the budget? And the bottom row there, 44% say that they don't know, so there was no response from them. The top items from those who did provide a comment were to improve efficiency and lower administrative costs, plan for future population growth, expand, build new outdoor areas, and improve roads, access, and traffic flow. And with that, I'll take any comments or questions you may have.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It looks like Councillor Reid is going to kick us off with some questions.
I had a couple of comments and then a question then. So town council is committed to ensuring that the services provided align with the needs of our residents. And so this is really helpful in that sense. And we are committed to effective, efficient, and financially sustainable in a sustainable way. So I think that this goes a long way in helping us with that. I noticed that, despite the rhetoric that we kind of heard around budget time, that at least the majority, 58% of our residents feel that they receive good to excellent value for their municipal services. So that was really, really commendable. And I think the second last slide, you emphasized that 29% focused on long-term sustainability, which in your notes or in the not in this presentation, but in the notes in our package suggests that people are looking to smooth out the tax strategies, right? So no huge increases, no big decreases, but look to level it out, which I thought was commendable. And then secondly, that 24% for planning for future growth. I thought that was great. What I really like about these tools is and I think it's great, because I think we've struggled, at least I have, but I think my colleagues as well may have struggled with the fact that collecting this information is statistically valid. I think in the past we've heard things that, maybe the last person you spoke to at No Frills or something like that. I'm being facetious there, but I love the statistical valid nature of these surveys. So the question I had, the one other comment I had was the appendices A, B, and C were really interesting to read, just the open comments that people had. And again, they're all over the spectrum, but they were still of value as a councillor in terms of being able to appreciate where members of our community are coming from. So having said all of that, I guess my question is, in moving forward, what tools will we use? Will we use similar tools in terms of being able to, maybe this is for you, in terms of being able to acquire this type of public engagement going forward? Is that the plan?
Through the chair, thank you for the question, Councillor Reid. I think this was a great year for us to be able to benchmark the results from last year, and you can see how it allows us to build and understand what we heard last year, how we facilitated that feedback. We're hearing it again this year, how we can facilitate that feedback. We've also heard feedback from council on our public engagement that we've been incorporating, so we're trying to continue to evolve our process as we go through. So I'm hoping next year is just a building block again on what we've done this year.
Great. Yeah, and again, I think it was an excellent report, and I love the approach, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Flowers.
I found it interesting to compare the numbers to last year. I'm glad you didn't change things up too much. It's hard though because there's such a variety of responses. How do we tell the community how we're using this, what a difference it made when there are competing interests?
That's the job of council.
Through the chair, Councillor, I think it's highlighting, well, first of all, I understand that this is going to be made public. The report is typically made public, so making people aware that it's public. And then really highlighting, like I showed in this slide here, that yes, people will do individually, and for any individual service, people might have opinions about raising or decreasing. And so I would highlight that, you know, by and large, people want funding to remain the same. You can't please everyone, obviously, but for each of the different pieces, just maintaining the status quo is a good idea. And then going back to some of those other slides that I have or that are in the report, where again, it talks about on the right-hand side here, it's not clear, right? Like it's not, there's no obvious, oh, here's what we're gonna do because 80% of you told us you want this. You're in my opinion, I would say try to keep things sort of in the middle of the road. Let's keep things where they are, and let's fund them as much as we need to keep the services where they are. If you've got extra budget, great, but if you don't, then just trying to maintain the services that you have is probably the best strategy I could think of.
The cost of living is so high right now that it may have impacted some of the numbers too, so maybe the more we can do in that area, the better. I think with Colt, there's some problems with it. So some people don't want to put more money into it, but we can't fix it if we don't put more money in. So it's a juggling act, that's for sure. Kristen?
Sorry, and just to add to your question, Councillor Flowers, I think the other important part for us when we bring back the budget for council's consideration is we're talking to you about how we've considered the feedback received in the budget that's presented to council.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flowers. Councillor Nagel.
I appreciate that you brought up Colt. That was actually what I wanted to comment on. As we look to make tough decisions about prioritizing our budget, one thing that I noticed in the numbers, if you go back to that last slide, the one you were on, no, sorry, the one you were on, wait.
Am I going too fast?
It's like the one with the bars and the graphs. Yes, case. So this one, it looks, I can see in the number from just looking at the blue, transit is the area that residents are most willing to decrease. And then if you went to the one where you prioritize them, I think Colt was also the lowest priority of clearly identified things. I highlight this because of all those things in here, I think Colt is one of the areas where we're going to be considering a very large discretionary increase in the coming months or years. So I think there's a mismatch between the amount of money, the amount of increase we're considering versus the interest from this survey. I think we might be considering a 200, 300%, 400% increase in the amount of money we're spending on Colt. So just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you, Councillor Nagel. Councillor Flowers.
Just to add to that, there will be much debate about this, I'm sure, in the future, but it's one of those things that if we don't provide it, nobody provides it. And the people that need it extremely need it, and some people never use it. So I don't think it's really fair to put it in this discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Flowers. Mayor Janan.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the report tonight. And you've highlighted it well. I think benchmarking from year to year is going to be important. I hope we continue to do this very thing. And as Councillor Reid has pointed out, I love the comments. One of the takeaways for me is that we need to do a better job of telling our story. There's a lot of upset people, I guess, from some of the comments around, and I think if they knew the story about why Center Avenue was ripped up 3 times, that maybe they wouldn't have that. Maybe they still would, but that's just one of the takeaways for me. But the other is not really to get into the specifics of each piece, but just that we utilize this as one piece of decision-making. And the rest is really left up to our administration professionals in each of these areas. And then us as council weighing this plus that information, plus looking at the forest instead of just the trees, that we have a big job and big decisions to make. And this is just one tool, but I really value it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Janang. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Just one question. A lot of the feedback didn't surprise me. One thing that did was partner organizations. Was that just when the survey was going on, were there examples given of partner organizations in town, or was it just declared as we see it there, Patrick, as partner
Right.
organizations?
Through the chair, Councillor, we did provide some, I don't have the written with me, but we did provide in the survey. It should be, if you have the full package, the survey is near the end.
Oh, thank
And
you.
if you
Okay.
can find that question, the way we do it online is that we ask the question, would you increase, decrease, or keep the budget the same? And then there's a little info button. And if you click that in, anyone who clicked that info button, they would see a little more detail on exactly what partner organizations means and what the funding there goes to.
And are there examples of partner organizations there? I'm just scanning through to try and find it, or is it just give a description of what a partner organization is? That's what I was trying to just drill down to.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Wilson. We did identify the partner organizations as
Thank you.
Spray Lakes and the library on our survey.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. I did have a few questions and comments myself. I certainly appreciate asking the same questions year to year so we can start doing that benchmarking, which is certainly a key element in being able to measure things. So over the years, we've done different surveys, but every year the survey was different, so you couldn't do that benchmark piece. So I'm very grateful and gratified to see that. So kind of a question on your survey design. Are there any questions you would add or drop year to year?
That's a good question. Adding questions, I would suggest, if you're considering adding, if there's anything of particular interest or especially budget-wise, obviously, that you might want to know one year, but you don't necessarily need to know another year, that we call that sort of like flavor of the month or flavor of the year type questions, kind of adding. Another idea that we've had, so we do this study with this, almost exactly the same study with the city of Leduc, and we have pitched to them, but they haven't gone for it, but actually having a question to say, here's what the current percentage is. So you can see on the right-hand side in gray there, the current budget. And so what we've suggested is saying, what would you change that budget to if it was up to you? And then we can also ask how much the resident pays in property tax. Now, obviously, only owners would pay property tax, not renters. But for the owners, we could say, what do you pay? And then they tell us what they would change it to. And we could do a bit of a calculation and say, based on this, based on what you've told us and how you would change the budget, here's what would happen to your municipal taxes next year. And sort of prompt them that way, and then they might change how they answer. Are you sure you want to answer that you want to increase these or decrease these? It might make it a little more real, because right now it's a little nebulous. Like, yes, I want to increase spending, but you know, if you go to someone, okay, that's going to cost you an extra $500 a year, and all of a sudden, okay, let's not increase taxes, right? So that's the one sort of addition that I might add. Now, it's not an easy question necessarily to answer, so I'm not sure how well it would go over or how good the results from that question might be, but it is the one question that I would consider.
Yeah, because I've certainly seen that tool being offered up at different municipalities, that slider piece. Usually, you know, I really want, you know, my recreation to improve. You know, what would that look like? So I don't know, maybe we could work out a deal with Leduc where we partner on the cost or something, because it would certainly be a value that I'd like to see. And then it was identified right off the top, and I certainly agree with Councillor Reid, the statistical validity of the survey is always important, but like this isn't like a national polling company. What makes this statistically valid? What's the...
Right, so it's statistically valid for two reasons. One is that we randomly call phone numbers. So for something to be considered statistically valid, every person has to have the equal chance to be contacted to do the study. And the two ways we do that is we send a postcard to every household. So implicitly, if a household gets the postcard, everyone in the household presumably could do the survey if they have a a cell phone. And then to ensure that we get a reasonable base size, enough respondents completing the survey, we also augment that with doing some calling. And so it's random in that sense that we could randomly call anyone's cell phone in the municipality. So in that sense, we have made it so it's the percent chance that you could do the survey is the same as your neighbor, effectively.
Type thing, okay, but not a representative.
Well, it is representative in that sense. And then we also weight the data. So when we get the results back, we corrected we asked in the survey how old people were, and then we corrected to make sure that typically surveys are primarily done by older folks. And so we need to weight their results down and weight up the younger folks so that we're not just hearing the voices from the older folks. Now, we don't have questions on too many different demographics, so I can't speak exactly how representative it is of the population other than by age. But yeah, certainly any questions we do ask, any demographic questions we do compare, and then we would weight the data to weight up those who are underrepresented and weight down those who are overrepresented.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm just asking those questions just, to understand the context of it all. No poll is ever perfect, but this is a great step forward, and I certainly appreciate the effort that's gone into making that happen. And just one last question. Any hypothesis on why the phone calls have been less effective this year over last?
It's not that they were less effective. We actually ended up doing fewer, simply because we are contracted to collect a certain number of completed surveys, which I think is 400. And the first year, we weren't sure exactly how well the postcards would work out. And so we did lots of calling to make sure we hit that 400, and then the postcards worked out better than we anticipated. So this year, we scaled down the calling because the postcards ended up, again, they were even better this year than last year. So we hit the target was 400 and we hit 407. So it's not that it's less effective, it's just we did less calling.
So it's more effective. Well done.
More effective, yeah.
Councillor Reid.
Just a yes or no answer would be great.
Sure.
Statistically, this is a representative sample size then? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The margin of error, I mean, you said just yes or no. Margin of error is 4.9%, so.
Excellent. Yeah, well, thank you very much for the presentation. I think it's a valuable tool in our decision-making. So thank you very much for your presentation. Colleagues, one last chance. Any questions, comments? No? Excellent. Looks like we're wrapping that one up, so thank you very much. It is now 7 o'clock. Let's take a break till 7:15, and then we will finish up our agenda from there. Thank you very much. council, I know I did say 7:15, but since everybody's here and ready to go, let's jump back into our meeting. Item 5C, event fees, introducing Ms. Christy Bell, the manager of our Ranch House Event Center, Community Events and Culture. That title is longer than I was thinking it was. Over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, Deputy Mayor McFadden, Mayor Janung, and members of council. I am indeed Christy Bell, manager of the Cochrane Ranch House Event Center, Community Events and Culture. I'm here tonight to provide a briefing on the different types of fees and what they offer, if waived for charitable fundraising events, what implications may result. Events and festivals that are held outdoors on town lands are required to submit a community event permit application and adhere to the town's community event planning standards. These standards have been reviewed and developed in collaboration with various town departments. The purpose of the application and fees is to ensure that community groups have the information they need and the support of the town in putting on safe and successful events for the community. Every year, thousands of community members attend permitted events. For example, last year we had approximately 110 events with over 60,000 folks participating. Our permit process fees are $55 and $100 respectively. Annually, the town collects approximately $3,000 in event permit fees. Not-for-profit organizations make up almost half of the total applications, and fundraisers make up about 25% of the applications we annually receive. Additionally, the town supports local not-for-profit groups through the Community Investment Grant Program. We give out $60,000 in support of small-scale projects and events annually, and $60,000 in support for large-scale events and festivals. These grants support projects and events that include recreation, arts, culture, heritage, social, environment, and they're meant to help build community spirit. Supporting event permit fees serves to uphold standards, promote responsibility, and ensure equitable treatment for all event organizers while also supporting the broader interests of the community. So what do fees support? Apologies for the slide, there's a lot of information in there, so I'll help you out. As part of the fee, event applications undergo thorough evaluation by various internal departments, such as parks, roads, fire, waste and recycling, municipal enforcement, and water, wastewater as necessary. Feedback, concerns, and suggestions are all gathered and provided to organizers, enabling them to adjust or uphold their event plans accordingly. This encompasses traffic management strategies, safety and emergency protocols review, pathway assessments, site map evaluations, provision of waste disposal facilities, and when necessary, pre- and post-event meetings and site inspections. Other supports include pathway inspections, gate access, moving of fencing, bullards, bleachers, snow clearing, cleaning and prepping outdoors ice surfaces, assisting with parking cars during event street closures, and much, much more. Many hours of staff time across multiple departments go into the event review time. The fees charged are not cost recovery for the process, but are in place to ensure that event standards are met. Aside from the service received, the principles for charging fees for events are equitable treatment. Charging fees for event permits ensures that all event organizers contribute their fair share to the community. It encourages responsibility. Requiring a fee for event permits incentivizes organizers to be more conscientious and responsible in their planning and execution. When organizers have a financial stake in their events, they are more likely to prioritize safety measures, adhere to regulations, and consider the impact of their events on the community and the environment. Streamlining processes. Organizers are more likely to submit thorough and complete applications when there is a financial commitment involved. This, in turn, facilitates efficient processing and reduces administrative burden. In summary, the town's collection of event permit fees, alongside its support for not-for-profit organizations through grants, not only upholds community standards and ensures equitable treatment, but also encourages responsible event planning, streamlines processes, and fosters a vibrant and safe community environment. I'm now going to speak to the rental rates at the Cochrane Ranch House Event Center specifically. So the Cochrane Ranch House Event Center is a full-service event center that hosts over 500 events every year. These events include meetings, markets, galas, art shows, blood donor clinics, community events, community and high school theater productions, dance recitals, corporate Christmas parties, memorials, church services, municipal events, weddings, and award ceremonies. And that was the slide for that. What is included? Ranch house room rental rates include cost of the rental of the space, event planning support, and full setup and tear down. Additionally, rates include use of tables, chairs, linens, skirting, flatware, dinnerware, glassware, projectors, screens, podium, mics, sound systems, and access to pipe and drape. Local not-for-profits book over 30 events, generating about $55,000 in revenue, with fundraising events contributing about $12,000 annually. Reduced rates, which are about approximately 20% off, are available to local organizations supporting community initiatives sustainably. Waiving fees for fundraising events could result in significant revenue loss, actually just honestly about $12,000 or more, but affecting the overall budget and operational stability. It may also lead to reduced accountability and increased cancellations. Granting complimentary access to the ranch house for fundraising events not only undermines direct revenue streams, but also disrupts the venue's ability to serve paying clients, potentially leading to a cascading loss of revenue. Without rental fees, groups may be less accountable, prone to cancellations, and may not adhere to booking commitments, further exacerbating financial instability. If council considers waiving these fees, implementing a booking policy to regulate access, ensure accountability is crucial for financial sustainability. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Well, I know my colleagues are thinking of some great questions. So just from a kind of a philosophy point of view, I know with the ranch house, because this has come up a fair number of times over the years, what the philosophy of the ranch house fees is. Because often there'll be the tug of war that it's meant to be a revenue generator to support, the overall organization, challenged against the need to support local not-for-profits and to be a community space. And so, I don't know, how would you define what the philosophy is for the ranch house right now?
I would say that what we attempt to achieve is a healthy balance of both, because I have heard over the years both of those things brought forward here in this space. But overwhelmingly, that responsibility to be financially accountable was the loudest voice. That being said, though, we provide a lot of access to this space with the reduced rates and other ways of mitigating access as well. Like, we work with every group to see what we can do, what else can we do to help navigate getting inside this space, if this is the space that fits their needs, or pointing them in directions of other facilities.
Okay. And when you're setting the rates for, the conference use, the wedding, those rates, do you select those, are those comparable to the region? Is that how you select those?
Yep.
Okay. For myself, I feel that my sense over the last few years is that we have hit that right balance of being a revenue generator and finding ways to support the community, and also being supported, I think, in the community. There are a number of community spaces that are now available to small not-for-profits. 10, 15 years ago, this was one of the very few spots, so it was a little bit more challenging, is my take on it right now. But that being said, I will turn it over to Councillor Flowers.
Thank you for all the support you do give to the groups. It's a long list and hard work. But we always have had it higher than other places in the community, so I know lots of people use the event center or the Frank Wills Hall, some of those things. Excuse me. But I know that we can't do it for free, so I think we just need to try to keep the prices down for nonprofits and keep it affordable so that they can use it. When it is a fundraiser, it would be nice if we could donate something if it's a silent auction. We never seem to have a gift that we can contribute just to show our support to so many groups in the community. I don't know if we can think about adding something like that at some point, whether it's a gift certificate or a blanket or town mugs with Cochrane on it, something that we could contribute just to show our support. But otherwise, I think we have to keep making sure that we can pay the bills.
Thank you, Councillor Flowers. Councillor Wilson, this was your initiative?
Yes, thank you. I believe it was my initiative. I think this is stemming from a notice of motion quite some time ago. I had a question about not-for-profit versus fundraiser designations when we were talking about that in the presentation, Christy. Is there a difference between those two terms, or is it the same thing?
Well, you could be a not-for-profit organization, but your event may or may not be a fundraiser.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
My original NOM came from talking to the organizers of the Kimmick Cup. I checked with them and they're okay with me using them as an example. They weren't thrilled that they were paying a event fee to set up a fundraiser, which was 100% charitable and all funds went to causes within Cochrane. So obviously it's the kind of event we want to promote. If I understand, it looks like there's two different event fees. It's $55 or $100. Is that right for outdoor events? Is that
Correct.
right? Yeah. So really, we're talking about a $100 charge here, it looks like, and it also looks like we collect $3,000 annual from the town because of that. It's not a cost recovery strategy, it's just simply a way to have all of our boxes checked and make sure that people that are setting up those events do so responsibly, I think is what I heard, and the fear would be if you eliminated the marginal $100 fee, we would have less compliance. That was the main argument back. It doesn't sound like it's a financial argument for $3,000 annually.
Well, and also the rest of the events, like specific to the fundraising events, it's pretty small how much we're collecting, but ultimately all events pay a permit fee. So my question, I think, would be, all events I think that happen in town provide something to the community. Obviously fundraisers are phenomenal and super valuable, but every event is as well. They're all serving the community. So my question would be is how far would that policy go, that policy change? If it were to just waive fees for fundraisers, I suspect my next phone call would be, well, why not ours?
If I may just supplement that to one of your points there, Councillor Wilson, is yeah, it's not directly a financial strategy, but it is an act of protecting the spaces and the investment as well. There is public interest in using and accessing those spaces, and so when we say ensuring all the boxes are checked, that also means ensuring that access is safe and the amenities of the parks or open spaces are protected appropriately for the public interest. And there is costs associated if we don't do that well. And so it's not an accounted for, or we can't demonstrate the specific costs associated with that, but it is, there would be costs if we were to see a degradation of people's adherence to certain policies, procedures, and rules around events as well. So keeping people engaged in that process through the permit fee is, I think, the higher order principle, and that there is a positive financial outcome because of that, although it's not a direct exercise to recover the cost.
Yes, thank you. I didn't bring this forward with a specific agenda. It was more a fact-finding mission to find out how we do things and why we do them the way we do. My only other question on this was something about grants. So we're offering $60,000 for small events and $60,000 for large events. I think that might have come from a council initiative from our last term, if memory serves. I'm trying to remember. Can we just speak to that very quickly? What that the grant funding for community events, that portion?
So there's the small scale projects and events grant. So there's $60,000 available annually. It's a matching grant up to $2,500. And then there's the large scale event grant, which is event specific, and that's asking for up to $15,000 matching to support large scale events in town.
Right, thank you. Well, yeah, and final question, if a group isn't a not-for-profit group or isn't a fundraiser, is there a different price for outdoor events? No, it's the same 100, okay. Okay, I suppose I'll just open it to the floor for discussion or suggestions. I'm not sure I have any distinct opinion after hearing all this, other than just thank you for all the information that I requested about it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Reid.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up where Councillor Wilson left off. I think for me, this was a fact-finding kind of mission in terms of being able to get clarity around some things, and I think you've done an excellent job in doing that. You know, for me, there is associated cost with public facilities that the public doesn't necessarily appreciate, particularly if you're a nonprofit or you're in a fundraising way, that include depreciation in addition to all the services that you've listed. And eventually that comes back on the taxpayer, right? And so I think to be you as an employee of the town and us as a town council, I think it's our responsibility to be stewards of those public facilities. And I think you do a good job. And I guess my comment would be, over the years, I've maybe given you a hard time about being revenue generating and at least break even. And you know, to your credit, you've done that, and I think you're an asset to the town, and I'm grateful that you do what you do in terms of finding that balance. And my recommendation would be that we accept this for information, if we were in a position to do so, and commend you on the job well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Mayor Janung.
Yeah, thank you. I'll to focus on the not-for-profit side of things that Councillor Wilson outlined. And for me, I think Mr. Derricott, you outlined it well in your report. Thank you for the details. It's not about cost recovery and revenue generation, which you've highlighted too, Councillor Wilson. It's more about, and that's where my focus is in this, is that there's the value that the community and your department are, well, all departments actually are providing for this $100 or $50 is way more than the $100 would even touch. But it ensures that I wrote a note to myself here that we're actually better positioned to provide the services by understanding the needs of the organization. And then I think Councillor Wilson, you touched on this as well, that so without a fee, so if it was zero or we waived it, I feel like we would be in a position to, that people just wouldn't apply at all, and we wouldn't know what's going on or even be able to help them, even unlock a gate or turn power on or clear snow, all the things that you've outlined. So for me, this is more about helping them and for a nominal fee, and then we could argue, and I think you've also outlined that to us as well tonight, that the grants that are available offset the cost of the $100 by so much that apply for the grant, pay the fee, and then we can help you with your event. So again, I'm in line with what Councillor Reid's saying, that thank you for your work, thank you for doing what you do, and that we should leave things alone and continue to monitor but operate in the same realm that we already are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Janung. Councillor Nagel?
I certainly appreciate the spirit of why we're having this conversation, is just trying to support community events. And so thank you, Councillor Wilson, for bringing this forward, and thank you for the presentation. When we first started having this conversation, in my mind, I was thinking it was going to be a much larger financial burden we were putting on these organizations. I think at $50 to $100, it's nominal, and I think it's good to have a bit of skin in the game, because there's consequences of people missing things or bailing on events and stuff like that. So I'm fine with the status quo moving forward. But thank you, Councillor Wilson. Thanks for the presentation.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Nagel. Looks like that is our question. So yes, thank you, Ms. Bell, for your excellent presentation and helping to provide some context and clarity to the community.
Thank you so much.
If I may, just to be clear, based on presentation, is that administrations will be taking no further action on this file, and just clearing that that's where we're at. Okay, very good, thank you. Thanks, Ms. Bell.
Thank you. Moving on from item 5C, we are now moving on to item 5D, Rolling Trails Neighborhood Plan Community Enhancement Evaluation, and calling up Mr. Rob Auclair, our Manager of Planning Services, who I understand is going to be presenting with members from VNA and Canopy Lands. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to introduce the Community Enhancement Evaluation for the anticipated Rolling Trail Neighborhood Plan application. I will also introduce the applicants, Patrick, Pam, and Assad, as they will be presenting to you directly tonight. The Community Enhancement Evaluation is for Council's consideration and feedback this evening. The Community Enhancement Evaluation process was adopted by Council in 2016 and was based on around the principles of the Municipal Development Plan, and was intended to provide is intended to provide Council and the applicant, as well as administration, the opportunity to assess and discuss potential area structure plans, as well as neighborhood plans before they are formally submitted. 10 questions were created to assess alignment with the five main principles with the Municipal Development Plan. All participants then can assign a rating from 1 to 5, with 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest, as to the degree in which they believe the development proposal achieves the goals in each question. It also is the intent that the community enhancement and evaluation will generate further discussion before the application is formally submitted to the town. So tonight we are on step 1, where council can provide feedback and generate discussion. Applications would then be submitted and go through the application process, that is including circulation, analysis, revision, public engagement, consideration, and of course, finally, council's decision. Approved in its future form, it would then lead to future land use applications. So with that, I would like to introduce Patrick Wetter, Pam McInnes from BNA, as well as Assad Naazi from Canopy Lands to continue with the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
I think I need a bifocal glass. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and honorable members of the council. My name is Assad Niazi. I'm the president of Canopy Lands, which is the land business arm of Shikadance West. We are leading the planning of Rolling Trails Area Redevelopment Plan. So on June 10th, a week ago, Rolling Trails Area Redevelopment Plan was adopted, resulting in council's direction and support to continue investing in town of Cochrane. Today, we would like to present our vision of the first neighborhood plan within the ARP. The neighborhood plan boundary is carefully established with the vision of what a complete community should offer. I would like the council to please keep in mind the following 2 points while reviewing the vision. Number 1, removal of any land or land use within the neighborhood plan could undermine the integrity of this plan and the concept of a complete community. Number 2, due to the fragmented nature of the ARP, it could be a long time before the next neighborhood plan could be brought forward. I would like to highlight that this plan reflects our commitment of building the urban intersection on Highway 22 in the early phases of the development, which will increase the accessibility, options for residents south of the river, and ease pressure on River Heights Drive, James Walker Trail, and Highway 22 intersection. We're seeing a strong interest from the retailers for our commercial land. Presently, we are in discussion with a major regional anchor who is interested in coming to Cochrane. It is nice to see commercial interest in the early stages of the development. With this concludes my part of the presentation, and I will now request Patrick Wetter, the Associate Planner at BNA Studios, to present the vision of the neighborhood plan. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to present today. Thank you.
Hello, Council. My name is Patrick Wetter of BNA. I'm here on behalf of Canopy Lands, and we're preparing the first neighborhood plan. The presentation I'll provide will offer an overview of our concept plan, our community enhancement evaluation response, a demonstration of the plan's alignment with Envision 2050, and then after our presentation, we request Council's feedback on our initial approach. The site is located between Highway 22 to the east and Towers Trail to the west. Surrounding Cochrane communities include Bow Meadows to the north and River Heights to the east, Fireside to the south, and Rocky View County to the west. The neighborhood plan encompasses the existing Rolling Range Estates community and a portion of the Towers Trail community. The area structure plan was approved by Council on June 10, 2024. The next stage in the development process is the neighborhood plan. The neighborhood plan will provide guidance on the development of the lands owned and managed by Shikadance West. Canopy Lands while respecting existing residents and affording redevelopment opportunities for adjacent landowners. You can see here where we are in the timeline with Neighborhood Plan 1 in the 2024 to 2026 part of the timeline. The following provides an overview of our concept. Specific elements include a mixed-use center, the town's MR lands, lower density residential, higher density residential, shadow planning, and upgrading the junction of Rolling Range Drive and Highway 22 intersection. As mentioned by Assad, we wish to stress that each of the proposed neighborhood components is an integral part of creating a complete community. Specifically, the commercial provides services to residents, the residents support commercial, recreation keeps the community active, a variety of dwelling types offers a home for everyone, and losing any one component could mean the failure of the rest. I'll also note the neighborhood plan provides a framework for other landowners to come forward with their own development proposals. As to the mixed-use center, it'll include residential apartments, major regional commercial anchor, and a mixed retail. And you can see some of the inspirational photos at the bottom. With respect to the town's MR lands, urban standard roads and utilities will be brought to the town's MR lands. The programming of the town's MR lands is to be determined through the neighborhood plan process. The town's MR lands provide a unique opportunity to accommodate a multi-purpose recreational facilities in line with parks, recreation, and cultural master plan in the larger Cochrane community. The proposed facilities we've considered include a multi-purpose dome and a multi-purpose recreation center. You can see here the phased approach to achieving this facility. The multi-purpose outdoor turf field could be in phase 1, a multi-purpose dome field could be phase 2, and a multi-purpose recreation center in phase 3. There's a variety of possible activities that could be accommodated by these facilities. The multi-purpose dome could include soccer, football practices, ultimate frisbee, running track, field lacrosse, etc. While the arena could include ice hockey, inline hockey, box lacrosse, basketball, and volleyball. The gym could include volleyball, basketball, pickleball, floor hockey, and badminton. There could be a studio with yoga, dance, CrossFit, spin classes, and the aquatic center could include lane swimming, swimming lessons, leisure pool, and aqua fitness. We have a low density precinct. This includes single attached lane and front drive, housing, villas and duplexes, townhouses, and 2 local parks. You can appreciate that the heights within this area will be a relatively low profile. The higher density precinct includes villas and duplexes, townhouses, single detached dwellings, and we would like to discuss with the town the possibility of 0 lot line product that would be guided under a DC for council's consideration. We have 1 local park, and then the storm pond that would manage the stormwater from these precincts. We've also produced a shadow plan, and it demonstrates how adjacent property owners can develop their lands while retaining their homes. It ensures access to transportation network and utilities while presenting a cohesive neighborhood. Shadow plans will be adjusted through community consultation, and the shadow plan can be changed with a neighborhood plan amendment. With respect to the intersection upgrade, the intersection widening along with signals and turning lanes will make this intersection safer and manage traffic. It will ease pressures to the Fireside intersection and the River Heights Drive James Walker Trail by offering additional access from Highway 22 and spreading out the turning movements. Area landowners will fund the intersection upgrade, and we are now collaborating with developers directly east of Highway 22 on the construction and design of the intersection. You can see in the following figure how the improvement of that intersection will lead to a more fluid transportation network. Now I'd like to go through the specific CEE questions. So number 1, how does the development proposal advance the town's goals of creating safe, walkable, vibrant neighborhoods for residents of all ages and abilities. Our response is that the existing street network will be upgraded to urban standards, and new streets will be introduced that accommodate sidewalks and pathways. Upgrading the junction of Rolling Range Drive and Highway 22 with a controlled all-turns intersection will establish a safe pedestrian crossings. And facing dwellings towards the streets will ensure regular surveillance of public spaces. The diversity of housing and open spaces will support residents of all ages and abilities. Number 2, how does the development proposal protect and maintain scenic views and vistas, integrate Cochrane's Western heritage, and maintain the feeling of open space that exemplify Cochrane's unique identity and small town atmosphere? The lands offer panoramic views of Cochrane's downtown and River Valley and towards the mountains. Views will be protected and maintained by providing a multi-use pathway along Towers Trail that showcases the grand vistas of the surrounding area, offering views from the town's MR lands and across the proposed storm pond, and then orientating dwellings to appreciate the views that Tower Trails offers. You can see in this figure with the purple arrows some of the views that will be maintained. Continuing with the same question, the feeling of open space will be realized by retaining and programming the town's MR lands for recreation, introducing 3 new parks within a 5-minute walk of residents, and offering a storm pond to enhance the feeling of open space. The following figure presents the open spaces that we are proposing for this neighborhood plan. To reflect Cochrane's unique identity and small town atmosphere, the neighborhood form will reflect an urban village. This will mean that street pattern combines a grid with angled roads leading to prominent features. The streets will be narrower and well lined with housing, and the commercial site is anticipated to act as a mixed-use center. And development will be anticipated to follow the town's Western heritage design guidelines. Number 3, how does the development proposal encourage the preservation and celebration of significant natural environmental features and/or cultural resources to the benefit of the entire community? Natural features within rolling trails include treed slopes, prominent wetlands, and a rolling topography. Most of these significant features rest outside of the property owned by Canopy Lands. Nevertheless, a biophysical impact assessment is being conducted currently during this initial stage of neighborhood design to determine natural features of significance. All features of natural significance will be incorporated into the neighborhood design. And as other landowners progress with development, they too will conduct similar analysis regarding conservation. Number 4, how does the development proposal contribute to the development of complete communities in Cochrane? Well, we will have a mixed-use center, which will offer local commercial employment opportunities. There will be a variety of housing forms, including wider lots, low-rise townhouses, bungalow villa-style senior housing, rental products for seniors and young families. It will enable landowners looking to develop to fit into a comprehensive vision and avoid uncoordinated development. And finally, it will connect Fireside to additional amenities and to the rest of the town via completion of a large portion of the regional pathway network along Rolling Range Estates and Towers Trails. In these images, you can see some of the inspirational images that we have for the housing types. Number 5, how does development proposal incorporate exemplary building design and compact urban form that reflect the town's planning principles, the Western Heritage Design Guidelines where applicable, and the efficient use of land and resources? The vision of the neighborhood plan is to facilitate unique, organic, and sustainable and livable community. Some of the key goals include introduction of urban densities that reflect the town's built form to support the resolution of land demand supply deficit that the municipality is facing. The provision of a variety of unique housing typologies, offering narrower streets that include unexpected design elements to enhance the public realm, respect for the town's Western Heritage Design Guidelines while tying the community together with the history of the lands, and programming the town's currently vacant MR lands with recreational activities that serve Cochrane. Number 6, how does the development proposal ensure connectivity within and between neighborhoods and provide opportunities to connect and maintain a future transit network within the town of Cochrane? In terms of traffic safety, traffic lights will be provided at the intersection of Highway 22 and Rolling Range Drive to increase the safety of this intersection, as well as provide the opportunity for east-west connectivity. In terms of transit, with safe access in and out of the community, the internal street network will accommodate transit. There is the potential for locations for future stops at the mixed-use center, the town's MR lands, and at key intersections. With respect to pedestrian connectivity, regional pathways will extend along Towers Trail, Rolling Range Drive, Rolling Range Estates that offer enhanced connectivity to the rest of Cochrane for the neighborhood plan residents, as well as Fireside and River Heights residents. The internal street network will include sidewalks where appropriate. As to neighborhood connectivity, development of the neighborhood plan lands will ultimately provide additional access points into the community of Fireside for both vehicular and pedestrian and bike traffic. The project team has and will continue to engage with Bike Cochrane Society to help inform connectivity. The following slide presents you with the proposed pathway network, which you can see with the dotted lines that run along Rolling Range Estates, Rolling Range Drive, and then Tower Trails. With respect to the surrounding network, you can see the red dots here demonstrating connectivity to the existing pathway network of Cochrane, both connecting to Fireside to the south and River Heights to the east, as well as connections to the north. With respect to transit, here are some possible locations for the transit. You can see that majority of future residents will be within 400 meters or a 5-minute walk of a transit stop. Number 7, how does the development proposal address the Cochrane Renewable Energy Framework and encourage responsible, sustainable practices, including use of alternative energy resources? Neighborhood plan strives for the implementation of intensification through the inclusion of redevelopment of low-density lands, enabling a more compact urban form with services and employment opportunities. The neighborhood plan intensification will facilitate the town reaching its target goal of intensifying the 2009 Cochrane development footprint by 25%. Alternative modes of transportation will be supported, including walking, bicycling, and transit, and the neighborhood plan will encourage solar-ready homes. Number 8, how does the development proposal promote a healthy and active lifestyle? Specifically, the neighborhood plan will offer local commercial that will enable residents to reach retail services and employment within walking distance of their homes. 3 public parks will allow for open spaces and recreation. Regional paths along Towers Trails, Rolling Range Estates, and Rolling Range Drive will be provided for citizens to walk and bike. Sidewalks will enhance the internal connectivity of the neighborhood, and programming a recreational space for the town's MR lands to facilitate healthy living. And this diagram shows how all the residents will be within a 5-minute walk of open space. Number 9, what is the strategy to encourage stakeholders, surrounding residents and landowners, and the broader Cochrane community in this process? Specific activities that we will be conducting include an open house that is specific to the Tower Trails, Rolling Range Estates, and Fireside landowners, an open house for the general public, individual one-on-one meetings, ongoing digital communication through our website, emailers to those who have provided their contact information, and the creation of What We Heard report to track our consultation process. We're committed to engaging the public and providing regular updates to the neighborhood plan process. And finally, number 10, how does the development proposal implement innovative or emerging development practices and trends? Innovative and emerging development practices and trends will be offered by the design of an urban village that celebrates Cochrane's small town atmosphere, the inclusion of a mixed-use center with a variety of retail services and employment opportunities within close proximity to residents, providing housing not readily available in Cochrane, creating interest and a sense of place through unique streets and landscaping, and finally demonstrating a staged development approach that respects current residents while affording them with opportunities to develop their own lands. You can see here the potential process that an adjacent landowner could undertake with their current property as it is, shadow planning in number 2, Next would be retaining their home with some development on the adjacent lands. And finally, the removal of the first home and complete development. Finally, we just wanted to note how this proposal is aligned with Envision 2050. We were listened in onto the conversation that Cochrane Council had with the consultant, and they posed a number of questions, and Council responded in turn. So one of the questions is, what is your growth vision for the Cochrane? And that was a sustainable community. And we see this as a sustainable community where infill development will help resolve the town's land supply deficit, where the mixed-use neighborhood encourages walking between homes, services, and recreation. And the introduction of sidewalks and pathways will support alternative modes of transportation. They also asked, what is your preferred growth pattern? Intensification, possible expansion was the answer. The neighborhood plan will lead to the infilling and intensification of an existing developed area within the town boundary. And where do you wish growth to occur? The answer was downtown, along major corridors, and in large neighborhood nodes. Redevelopment will result in the intensification of Highway 22 corridor and the establishment of higher density commercial node. How extensive should be the mobility choice? And the response was maximize mobility choice. The neighborhood plan accommodates multiple modes of transportation through the upgrading of the existing road network, the introduction of sidewalks and the regional pathway system, and supporting transit. And being infill land, this is an opportunity to connect Fireside with the rest of Cochrane. And how much housing diversity should be offered? And the response was maximize housing diversity. And in addition to single detached home, housing forms that are not widely available in the town will be offered in the neighborhood plan, including water lot homes, low-rise townhouses, and bungalow-style villas, senior housing, and rental products for seniors and young families. That ends my presentation. I thank you for listening, and we would be happy to answer any questions you may have about this initial first neighborhood plan for Rolling Trails. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your presentation. Councillor Reid, lead us off, please.
Yeah, I had a couple initial questions, or comments and then questions. So, I think planning is a critical, fundamental stewardship responsibility of town council and for the overall good of our community. And I recognize that there is some diversity in terms of this particular decision, but I think it was the right decision, at least from my perspective. I think planning is critical for growth. And not just growth for growth's sake, but growth for the well-being of the community. And so I like that you respect the existing landowners and residents in terms of this proposal. And in fact, that the landowners is, according to the report, for the landowners who choose not to proceed with this development in their lands at this time, these lands will be shadow planned. And I think the shadow plan is an excellent tool in terms of being able to achieve our goal as well as respecting those residents who do not wish to proceed forward. Some of the compliments that I have for you are that I really appreciate the reference in the CEE back to the Envision 2050. I think you're probably the first developer that I'm aware of that's done that. And I think that's brilliant in terms of being able to move council forward and reminding itself of what it believes to be its important priorities. I also like the question and answers of the 10 themes that you referenced. I think you did an excellent job on that. I noticed in the presentation, the visual presentation, you didn't reference the boardwalk idea, which was in our package, and I think it might be worthwhile to speak to when after I ask my questions, but I think it was a really interesting idea. The three questions that I have are there any utility corridors that run through your property that might prohibit or inhibit some of your considerations?
So I'll just, through the chair, I'll bring it back to our main map here, so in terms of the specific lands owned by Canopy Lands, there's no corridors that would cause any issue with the development of their specific properties. Nevertheless, there is a corridor running through some of the other lands on the site. This utility corridor right here, you can see does go through some of the sort of section on the east side here. is some consideration that needs to be made for the MR lands, for example, as well as this corridor goes through. We've identified, for example, a parking lot there, which should be an appropriate use to put over such a corridor. Usually, like, buildings are usually prohibited on such a case. But yeah, specific to the Canopy Lands property, there's no corridors that should be an issue.
Thank you. The second question I had was the proposed storage pond in the, I guess that location, I guess that would be the southeast location. If and, well, not if, but when the Highway 22 is twinned, would there be any implications for that storage pond?
We've taken consideration of where they have quite a large right-of-way, and we've taken that into consideration. Our understanding is that the property boundaries will not be changing as a result of that. But nevertheless, that's a good question that we can take back to our consultant, engineering consultant, to ensure that's not an issue.
Okay. And then, almost tongue-in-cheek, are there any dog parks proposed for this?
It's interesting you asked that. We did meet with the town recreation group, and they had that same question. And so we are now starting to think about what uses could go in these park spaces as activities. So one of those that we have for consideration is a dog park, but we also noted a few other activities that the town raised that would be of interest too. And as part of the neighborhood plan, we will be providing a concept plan for each of the parks that will identify proposed uses. So we will get back to you on that.
Yeah, not wishing to make a plug for it, but just the reality that I think probably 80% of people who live in Cochrane own at least one dog. And so it is becoming somewhat of a compelling issue for some people, but I raise it tongue in cheek. Just segueing back then to the boardwalk idea, do you have any graphics to be able to share with council on that, or?
Yeah, so no, we did include that in your submission package. We wanted to provide, so we didn't include it in this presentation because we wanted to provide a little bit more of certainty on what kind of uses would go into this development, so the major regional commercial anchor and the mixed retail. The package that was included was more of a palette of potential colors and materials that could go to enhance these future commercial buildings on the site. So we didn't want to mix them together. We didn't want to cause any confusion because we know the imagery that was shown also could be considered, Main Street, kind of somewhere in a small town, somewhere that's maybe not completely reflective of the actual buildings that will be going here. So nevertheless, we are in conversation with that commercial retailer about resolving the palette of colors and the architectural theming. But it's good to hear, whether you felt a good impression when you first looked at that or not.
Yeah, what I like about the boardwalk theme, not to belabor it, but is that it actually picks up on the Western Heritage theme and a theme that we have in terms of, pedestrian friendly and accessible. So that's one of the two themes I like. But overall, my initial comments are that I like where you've gone with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. I have some questions from the presentation, Patrick, if I can. You opened it off with the statement of any changes to the proposed neighborhood plan could negatively affect the total plan. Is that because this is a shadow planned community, or is that just any ASP that came before us could claim the same thing, I suppose? I don't understand the relevance here.
Yeah, the general intent was that we identified some phasing in the area structure plan, looking at phasing the neighborhoods. And after some consideration, we thought that it would be best that we came in with one neighborhood plan, including, I guess, 3 of the phases. And so that essentially phase 1 would have your commercial, phase 2 would have your lower density precinct, and then phase 3 would have your higher density precinct. And by coming in and proposing all 3 phases at one time, we realized we could create a complete community with all of those included. So, and I should mention also, the rec facility aspect to it. So we wanted to emphasize the importance of creating a complete community, because, for example, if just the commercial came in and that was it, you don't have really local residents to support it, and it might make it more difficult for it to be successful. So that's why we wanted to emphasize that, you know, having all 3 phases and all the 3 precincts would create this great community where there's a little bit of everything and everybody supports each other in creating a community.
Fair enough, thank you. How do narrower streets enhance the public realm?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. We looked at, you know, we're looking at street standards. So the typical street standard for a residential street in Cochrane's 15.5 meters wide, and we're going to retain that street standard. But we are looking at the collector streets. You know, if you look at some of the City of Calgary streets, collectors are quite wide. 25.2. That means the houses are quite set back from each other because you have this wide collector kind of road that's going through the community. So we have a collector that runs through like this through the community, and we wanted to make them narrower to make it more of an urban village feeling. So we're thinking, you know, around 21 meters wide. We'll be talking to our transportation engineer, to work those out in the town as well. But that was our intent, was to narrow up some of the collectors to make that more intimate feeling in the community.
Okay. I got another one for you.
Yeah, sorry, what you asked something just before that, there was the narrowing of the streets, but there was something else that you asked.
Narrower streets enhance the public realm.
Oh, and then, yeah,
just give you a chance at that.
That's right. Just by bringing homes closer together, it just creates a bit of a, how do I say it, more intimate community that feels safer, and rather than being separated by large, busy streets.
Theoretically, slowing traffic speeds down, et cetera, being closer together. Okay.
That's right.
How will the Highway 22 traffic lights help unburden traffic flows? That's a tough one for me. I assume it just means you're connecting, say, Bow Meadows to Fireside through back roads and just giving more options for traffic to travel on. Is that the idea? Or
Yes, that's the general idea. So right now, the Fireside intersection here is quite busy, and so by providing them another access point over here at Rolling Trails, then people could have an alternative route through the communities to leave or to enter this part of the town.
Thank you. Would we expect those roads to be available amongst the first things to be done in the community? In particular, Towers Trail and Rolling Range. Those are the main connector roads to the other communities that surround this one.
Yeah, the first focus will be, upgrading this intersection. But then as we move forward and build out, the phases, the roads will be upgraded phase by phase. So Rolling Range Drive here will probably be the next road, and then we'll move our way down Rolling Range Estates and gradually upgrade the road network. And then Tower Trails, this portion of Tower Trails will also be upgraded as part of this. So essentially you're upgrading the roads that are adjacent to each development.
Okay, and maybe not a question for yourself, but how early would we expect it to go right into Fireside? I guess that's the opportunity is already there. It's just gated, but I don't understand how long it'll take for that whole road to be paved and when that connection piece will come in.
Right. Well, I don't have a specific answer right now, but we have to look at the phasing of this development. Right now in the area structure plan, this is identified as phase 3, so it could be a later date. But we'll be meeting with our transportation engineer to get a more technical answer for you, specifically on terms of timing for the opening that up.
Okay. Last testing question, angled streets to a market square. What's that?
Yeah,
please.
Sure. You can see some of the angle streets in this location here. It's created a very unique and kind of village-like feel to this part of the plan. So as you're driving along this collector street, you'll be ending on a park here, so it kind of angles up. So it creates a bit of interest if you're walking or biking or driving, that as you kind of bend the corner, you'll suddenly be presented with an interesting park space.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I lied. I have one more question. Providing housing not readily available in Cochrane, two of the homes, I got wider lot homes, easy enough to understand, bungalow villa style senior housing. I think I understand that. What is a low-rise townhome? I couldn't figure out with Google either.
Sure. So townhomes usually, they are often 3 stories high. But there will be some cases here where we'll be having 2-story townhouses, for example. So it's just, it's a little bit, I guess, 1 story off, making it a little bit more low profile than your typical townhouse. So, but we'll be going through the mix of product types as we go further along.
Okay, thank you. And was already said here that my positive comment is I do still appreciate the stage development approach that respects current residents, that seems to be still planned in here quite well. I guess that would really affect the build out of these different areas you're talking about, because it would, a lot of it would be when local residents decide to make any changes, should they? Is that correct? Or is that more the stuff that's not on the map currently that would be affected by?
Yeah, so what we've done is provided this shadow plan to give a sense to the adjacent landowners of how they could connect with the road network, how they could bring utilities into their individual properties. But the next stage for them would be then to, after this neighborhood plan is approved, and they're interested in doing development, is to consider their property and maybe consider working with others, adjacent neighbors, to do a neighborhood plan amendment. So suddenly they'll be considering, like, if you take this parcel, these couple parcels here, suddenly they're thinking about the streets, and then what uses do they want? Townhouses? Do they want single detached? Do they want villas? And it's going to start filling in more and more with these type, I guess, colors, you could say, identifying uses. So the idea is that they can easily then, after the neighborhood plan is approved, come on board with their next, their development and start filling in this area with more Cochrane-like development.
Okay, thank you very much for answering all the questions in the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Flowers, over to you.
Hi.
Hello.
You mentioned seniors housing quite a few times, and that's something we really need in Cochrane. So many seniors are becoming seniors here, and many are moving here. But you can only control it in the pieces that you guys own. I didn't see a lot because I know that with the townhouses, there's a lot of stairs. So how many would you realistically be able to accommodate for seniors?
Yeah, through the chair, thank you for that question. The general intent is the villa product, which is this, I guess you call it orange color here. And villas typically are a bungalow style duplex. So they have limited, they may be just 1 story. They might have a basement, but they're limited in terms of how many stairs they are. And they're geared towards seniors who want to downsize, but still have a house or that's got a little bit of a yard and a front yard. So I got some, just gonna see if I've got some numbers here for you, and we're still, determining specific stats and everything like that, but it is quite a few units that we're considering. So with that, so there is about talking about 200 units that could be provided for seniors type housing. So of course senior housing comes in a lot of different forms, but this is one style that we want to provide within this community.
That's quite a few. And you mentioned rentals, so would that be like a 4-story building? Or?
No, it could be a variety of things. We do have the commercial area that's intended to include some kind of residential. It hasn't determined quite yet if that's going to be rental or not, but it probably will be some kind of apartment style. Whereas to the rest of the lower density precinct and the higher density precinct, those could be like rental townhouses, for example, or a rental semi-detached. So a little bit kind of that mid-range density. They call it often the missing middle that we want to really tap into and provide some opportunities for rental.
Great, I like the variety. Have you thought about putting housing on top of the commercial? It wouldn't be for seniors, but for others?
Well, the commercial developer we are in conversation with, that's what they often do. We're actually working with them on a development in South Calgary that includes residential adjacent to commercial. I'm not sure if we'll be doing residential over top of commercial, but that's something we can bring forward to that commercial group to see if they would be interested in including it.
Seems like a good use of the land. You mentioned zero lot lines. We don't have that in Cochrane, do we?
No, that's right, and you may recall that BNA actually presented a proposal for a zero lot line product, and that was more of a blanket sort of zoning sort of proposal. In this case, our client's quite interested in seeing if this could be maybe a pilot in this specific location. And if I can just bring up, I'll bring up this here. So where they are thinking about it was this little strip here and this little strip here. And in order to, we respect completely that, you know, the results of that, this last proposal that we had before council. There's an interest, however, to create something higher density that isn't all about apartments in this location, but how can we have higher density living in an area, but still keep this sort of urban village, low profile feel to the community. And what we would propose is a direct control district so that it would be completely under the preview of council, and we'd be going to administration to work through it before presenting to council. So, but while respecting also that this would be more of a pilot, more of a specific to this location to realize some kind of higher density that's, as I said, not always all about apartment buildings.
Okay. Sure.
Through the chair to Councillor Flowers. Yes, I mean, just to add to what Patrick mentioned, one other thought was that having a zero lot line is the interface with the fireside. I mean, this area of the ARP is high density. So the high density means that townhomes and that kind of a higher density product. But we thought that, okay, this strip could be a lower density because zero lot line is almost a detached house looking, but it can have a bit higher density than a single family. So by being in this area of the ARP, which is high density, we thought this would be the best product in terms of that it looks like a single family detached house, but it's a zero lot line. So respecting our neighbors on the south side, that was also our thought, that bringing zero lot line on the south, along the south edge, and also on the north edge where there's acreages on the other side. So not going with a very, very high density as per the ARP, but a bit lower, but and we felt the zero lot line will address that and still keeping the density targets which we want to achieve in this area as per the ARP.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but I'll see what others say. My only other question was about the rec, the MR lands. Drew, would it be big enough to do all the things that he outlined that we could do?
Yeah, through the chair, thank you. So we had our urban designer from our office work through that in terms of ensuring that the square footage was the correct amount for each of these facilities. So this is to scale, I guess you could say. There needs to be some consideration, of course, parking numbers that we want to accommodate on the site. So that's something that we can take a look at. So to answer your question, we feel that this is a possibility and achievable for the site.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Heineman, did you want to provide some context to that?
Yes, I just wanted to share that we did have a meeting. There'd be more work on this site that would be required. Those are significant facilities, and exactly how those are being provided would be a key question that we would have to work through with the applicant. So there's a lot more work to do in this space. Just wanted to share that as well.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nagel.
Yeah, so I have a few questions. I unfortunately missed the public hearing last year, and so I was out of town and was unable to be part of the last decision-making processes. So I may ask some questions that you all know the answers to. I just do not. This recreation facility being proposed, is this something that you're talking about building?
So we were, it wouldn't, yeah, but there's similar to what Drew is, Hyman was alluding to, is that the funding for this would have to be resolved. We have in the area structure plan a little bit of a discussion point about how the local developers will contribute to the site, to essentially in what would be typical of a space that would be for local needs. So the funding would be relative to what the local people would need. What we're identifying is that if there's a regional aspect that serves a wider Cochrane, there might be a variety of different approaches to this, whether it is fundraising or something through the levy bylaw, or is it some other sort of mechanism to raise funds for this. So in short answer, there is a contribution that the local developers will make. It will not be enough to realize this. And to realize this, we'll have to look at other mechanisms. And we wanted to identify the phasing approach as well, to say, maybe there's something that we can start out with, and then gradually over time, this builds out to something more prominent and everything. And just in terms of timelines too, I understand that the master recreation plan is being updated, so that also might provide some input on what this site could be as well. So we're in the exploratory phase at this point in time, and but we wanted to say, here's a possibility for the site that could be really exciting and fulfill some of the needs that Cochrane has.
So the little bit that I know about the costing for recreation facilities, I think your phase 3 plan would be somewhere between like $50 and $100 million, unless it's unless the scope of it is smaller than I'm thinking. Are you guys talking about tens of millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands for your contribution?
For sure, yeah, and I would love to answer that question, and we're still working through a mechanism as to how we could do some contributions. And as I mentioned, the area structure plan does, or the area redevelopment plan does mention how sort of a funding process, but very high level. So we just aren't quite there yet to answer that question, but at the same time, we can take it back. We will take it back and resolve that.
Okay, yeah, so when we go forward with these public conversations, I think we just need to be careful about telling potential future residents and home buyers there's going to be a rec center built in this neighborhood when, to my knowledge, there's nowhere near the funding for it being discussed at this point. So that's a little bit careless from the public relations standpoint. And then I also have some questions. I saw an upgrade in the intersection for Highway 22. Has anything been planned for Towers Trail and I think it's George Walker Trail over by Bow Meadows and Bow Ridge? George Fox, sorry.
So up further up north than this location, I think you're referring to.
Yeah.
No, as the area redevelopment plan identified the potential need for an upgrade of Towers Trail down to George Fox. This neighborhood plan specifically is looking at, I'll just bring it back to, it's specifically looking at this area in here. So a future neighborhood plan would have to start looking at how development will occur further to the north and connect with George Fox Trail. So we're not at this point considering in detail about how that upgrade and connection would take place at this time.
Do you have any visual representation handy or some way of explaining the size of the land in between? How far is the land on the north side of your plan and the intersection? In my mind, they're like abutting right against each other, but is it quite a substantial swath of land?
Yeah, it is a triangle, but essentially the distance between Fireside and to this Towers Trail and Rolling Range Drive is if you think of that distance, it's still, it's just as much all the way down to George Fox. So it is quite a substantial distance to get there.
Okay. And then on the decision points of the zero lot line and the shrinking of collector roads, is that something council's going to get to make another decision on to say no to that? Or, okay.
Yeah, we'll have we haven't submitted our neighbor plan to date, and we haven't submitted our land use, so those will both be going to council for consideration.
Okay, for me, reducing collector roads and zero lot lines, definite deal breakers, just to clarify. Thanks.
Right. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Councillor Nagel. Mayor Janung.
Yeah, thank you. I won't go, well, maybe I will go over a few things that have been covered already, but I appreciate the shadow plan. I think we spoke to that at the last interface with you. So I'm still in support of shadow planning and giving clarity to existing residents and landowners and how their lands could and will potentially fit into the overall plan. Pathway connection was one on my list. You addressed that. I think the connection to downtown, super important, which you've highlighted. I share Councillor Nagel's caution on programming the MR lands, the town lands. I think we should just have that as a blank slate right now, and you've already referenced the master plan that's underway. I just think it's pretty, careless was the word I think you used, Councillor Nagel, but I just like setting perceptions and then maybe reality doesn't follow is something that we deal with on a daily basis. So if we could avoid that, I think the vision could potentially be that, and it looks good, but I think we really need to be careful about how we talk about that. Engaging residents, we've done a lot of, well, some touring around University District, West District, other communities that we've visited. And the way I've kind of seen some different approaches to engagement of neighboring lands and residents and then future residents that I've seen in some of those examples I've given that I've appreciated. And some of those have been like on-site presence for doing open houses versus trying to meet, close. So you can actually walk and see the lands, and I think it breaks down some of the myths or potential, misunderstandings in the future. So early and often, which I understand you would do. Overall, I think for me, and you've highlighted kind of phasing and different types of uses, which I appreciate, but at the end of the day, for me, mixed use is going to be important. And we've been hearing from, and you've probably been aware of like the Urban 3 presentations that we've been listening to. And I think from a council perspective, we're going to be looking for development that provides us with missing gaps in residential, which you've outlined, but also on the commercial side, potentially looking at less surface parking and maximizing lands. And I'm not saying less parking, I'm saying less surface parking, that we see a mixed use on land so that at the end, you're handing over a neighborhood to our community that is financially viable, and not just in like the benefits of the housing and the commercial aspects, but that is financially sustainable for us as a community to maintain 2 or 3 generations in. So that I think is, when you've heard me talk about leveraging our desirability, this is one where we can hold that bar, and you will, as a developer, get and maximize your returns on the development of the lands, but then we're also ensuring that our community is set up for the future, so we're not in a deficit for the infrastructure costs and operation costs into the future. So that's going to be a lens. I think Councillor Wilson, appreciate that you brought that to our attention in such a great way. But those are the types of questions that I'll be asking at future stages. And it doesn't mean giving up. It means actually holding to a higher level of, and you said you have like a large anchor tenant, but perhaps it's putting some pressures on that entity to deliver on a really special design that maximizes what I've just talked about. And I think still gives everybody what they need in the end.
For sure. No, thank you for the chair. That's really good comments, and we'll definitely take those back, I think, to our group and talk to our commercial partner that we're speaking with about creating a special place and everything. And and also considering, how we are ensuring this is a really interesting, unique community that will, withstand the time in terms of seeing multiple generations enjoy this area into the future. So certainly appreciate that, and we'll take that all back as for consideration as we move forward here.
Perfect, thank you. One last point, just building off of what Councillor Flowers was talking about with providing seniors housing. And I appreciate your comment back that there's a wide variety of housing that seniors would access. On the flip side of that, it's entry level as well. And I think sometimes those two entities match in a lot of respects, but I've heard a lot of feedback from specifically seniors asking for more of a stacked bungalow type living. They've seen it in other communities and they're asking for it here. So a place of transition, but not giving up all of the things of a single family home, but giving up all of the, maybe the burdens of. So I'll end my comments there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Mayor Janang. Yeah, so some good discussion, I think, and ideas from my colleagues. I had a couple that I just want to get some clarity on. First, in regards to, if you could go to the slide where you're talking about your commercial area.
Yep.
So, so is your aim here, is it to be highway or regional commercial? What's the target market that you're looking for here?
For sure, it's you know, and I just working with this partner and commercial partner in the past, they often are trying to create sort of a combination of those two. They're trying to attract people from a regional perspective, but they're trying to also create a destination, a place that people want to spend time in and enjoy, while also considering what the local needs are. And they're also trying to create something where, you know, as I mentioned, the residential apartments they're interested in, that the idea is that the two serve each other, that people can live here and just walk downstairs and they can go to their local, you know, there's, you know, meet their local needs within a walking distance of their place. So it's, they're pretty sophisticated group, I would say, when it comes to this type of thing, where they know. They started out more as looking at that regional draw, but now they're really looking into creating a bit of a sense of place that people locally and regionally can enjoy.
So it's not just, you know, the gas station on the corner?
That's right. That's the intent. It's supposed to go beyond, you know, still provide local services, but in a way that people will actually be. It's not about just going there and leaving, but there's some interest there that results in you spending some time and enjoying the place you're at.
So kind of where my concern or my thoughts are coming from is the need to make sure that this commercial integrates with the rest of the community. I think one of the misfires perhaps in our community is the highway commercial piece in Heritage Hills, in that you have to drive to get there.
Right.
And there's no way that integrates with the rest of the community, and I've always felt that was a miss. Right. So that's one of the flags for me, is just to make sure that the commercial here is, you know, you're not gonna have to drive out on the highway just to get there, that it is a walkable access for the rest of the community. Is that part of the vision?
Well, we can, like, we've had some initial discussions with this potential partner, and something we can definitely take back to them as an important item for council. So, but, you know, they've done a few different developments in and around, and usually when you're within the development is a walkable area, like there's definitely parking there for people, but the idea is also people are able to stroll around and check out different shops and retailers as well. So I think it's, again, they try, and it's always a hard balance. Like, I don't think it necessarily will be like purely Main Street kind of feel, but on the other hand, I don't think it's going to be simply just cars and parking either. It's something, trying to strike a balance between the two of those, which, again, I've worked with these fellows before, and that's been the general approach that they've taken.
Okay. Yeah, that's just important to me, that it just be porous into the neighborhood and to allow folks to connect with it, and not just to be an isolated service. For sure. It was my feedback on that piece. And then I do appreciate, you really seem to be trying to lean into that missing middle and that diversity piece, and the mayor had highlighted, you know, not only are we looking for the seniors that are downsizing, but also that entry level, you know, my kid's off to college, one day I'd like her to be able to come back. So just to make sure that we are providing that complete range of housing in that mix. So that is something that I do like about what you're talking about today. Also, just to echo some of the concerns I've heard from Councillor Nagel and the mayor in the planning for the MR piece, please don't do that. That really puts council in an uncomfortable position in that it looks like something's been promised. So unless you're going to build it and pay for it, maybe keep it off the map. Because it does put us in an uncomfortable position. I know, because I did vote against this because I think your design's good. I just think the timing's wrong. But I did have folks like, it's like, Tara, don't you believe in recreation? Don't you believe in volleyball? And it's like, yes, I do. But that's not what the decision was about. So that's my piece, is just as we move ahead, let's just be very careful on those type of conversations. I think it puts council in a bad spot. But overall, I really appreciate that you're going through this process and allowing council to kind of lean in early stages for it. For myself, it's just, that walkability piece, a unique sense of place is really important to me. So I really appreciate your talking about that Western Heritage Design guidelines. And that diversity of housing is important. So those are my comments there. Colleagues, any last thoughts? Looks like we've wore them out. So thank you very much for your time tonight, gentlemen. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us. And yeah, just to mention, we just, with this possible phasing slide, I just wanted to mention where, the intent was get you excited about the site, to be honest with you, but also we wanted to show this phasing to acknowledge this is a long-term process kind of piece. But we're certainly going to take, what you've said back to our group to ensure that we're not over-promising what it goes on this site at all. So certainly appreciate those comments regarding the Recreation Center.
Excellent, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, have a great night. Onward. So we are now on to item 5E, Council Chambers Renovation Update. Mr. Heineman, our ED of Development and Infrastructure Services.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and members of council. As you recall, during the council budget deliberations, we did inform you that we would be back to provide you an update regarding the council chambers as part of the renovations within the building. So I'm here to provide you an update on that. Again, as I mentioned, it was part of the budget, and essentially we have been working on those plans. We're happy to share them with you this evening. Before we proceeded, we made that commitment to come back to you, and looking forward to your feedback. I think you're all familiar with the existing council chambers. You saw them this evening when we had a large event or large interest, and the challenge with standing room only. But certainly some of the work that we have done goes beyond that. So what are the enhancements that we're referencing in? There's some pictures that talk to the functionality of the room, but obviously safety, single entrance to the gallery seating. There would be a waist height partition between the gallery and administration, so that's both safety and security as we get into larger meetings. Functionality, elevated council bench, so improved space efficiency. As you can see in the room this evening, there is a large separation between administration and council, so we want to close that gap. Expanded public gallery with 55% more seating. I think we could have accommodated everybody earlier this evening within the room under the new proposal. Critical item is audio-visual update. I think we've been doing our best to keep things together, but we do need a comprehensive approach and not to do this piecemeal. A lot of the equipment that we have is dated, and we've had some challenges through that. Also revised the breakout room, so improved space efficiency, and then again raised floor improves our ability to implement future updates as well. Of course, it would require existing furniture and finishes that are currently 18 years old to be updated. So really what we wanted to do is walk through what some of these enhancements to the space would be. So I'll just walk you around the room. There would be the council and admin entrance. There'd also be a council entrance at the rear with a large breakout room for 14 people. There is the partition, however, it would be completely enclosed throughout council chambers to ensure that safety and security that I referenced earlier in the presentation. There would be a larger public gallery update of the furniture as well. So going from 36 people to 56, so that's the 55% increase. There would also be a space for the guest podium as well as the admin podium. Here is the pillar that I'm standing beside right now. So again, it brings everything closer and brings admin in this area much closer to council. There would be technology updates included in the updated furniture. The raised council bench in this location with the ramp up to it, as well as the council breakout room. So we wanted to outline what the risks of not proceeding with this project. The gallery would continue to be too small for events like earlier this evening, and we've had a number of different developments come forward in our community which have garnered a lot of interest. Of course, this is where you do all of your business in a very important space, and improvements are needed in this space. Audio visual will need to be replaced. It is approximately 40% of the budget, but we want to have an enhanced ability from our audio visual perspective. I think we've made advancements from the live streaming, but certainly we need to continue in that direction. Furniture and finishes will continue to wear and eventually will need to be replaced. So our recommendation is that council receive the update as information, but of course happy to have further discussion and receive your input. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Heinman. It looks like Councillor Flowers is leading us off.
It had to be Councillor Reid to the light. Drew, can you tell me, is there still a spot for the media to sit?
Absolutely. So there is an area right here to the back, which includes the media, is right beside the guest podium.
Oh, okay.
So
because sometimes there's more than one guest too, so where would they sit?
Well, there would be an opportunity for all the seating for guests, 3 seats for the media, as well as the guest podium, separate outside of the what's called a pony wall. So again, keeping that area separated from administration and council.
I really am impressed with the safety and security, because we definitely need more of that. And as life goes on, it's going to get more and more important. But it looks like your backs would be to the audience, and would they?
That is correct. That's one of the challenges with the design, but I think one of the things that it really enhances is the ability to be closer to council and have those discussions. And again, through the audiovisual equipment, I think, again, we would have enhancements all throughout this space, which would make it a better experience for council, administration, as well as people viewing, whether they were in this setting or online.
So is there 4 of these drop-down screens?
We would just have, there would be, part of the discussion was to have at council, rather than having your laptops, to have monitors right there for you, and then administration to have them, or possibly having large monitors right below administration and right below council as well. So again, these are some of the finer details that we'd be working through.
If administration was speaking, then they'd still get videoed?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Good.
I think there would be an opportunity to have significant enhancements in terms of the camera going to different parties throughout the room as they spoke.
So in reading the background material, the only thing I didn't like is we might be out for a couple of months doing these meetings from home.
Well, that is one of the challenges. We want to be very strategic in terms of when that would occur, and we would be looking at sort of the end of the year, early into next year, to have those virtual meetings for that period of time.
Do you think we could have them set up in the ABC room or somewhere where we could still come together?
There are opportunities to do that as well. It's really just providing some direction to council on terms of the work that we've done to date since our last discussions on this.
I'm always scared that 2 months will lead to 4 months, and then it's a long time to be not able to get together. I'd rather see it done here, but great work, I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Reid.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the cost was of the council renovations of the, is it 1.25?
That only, the actual cost of the council chambers is $500,000. This, the 1.25 also includes the east and west renovations within the ranch house. So we have the space that was vacated by the daycare, as well as we're looking at renovations to the ECC to provide more office space. So you see the reference under the background of 25 new workspaces and 4 meeting and collaboration rooms, as well as some breakout spaces. So again, we're with our existing budget, everything is within the existing budget, but allows us to do council chambers as well as those other spaces that accommodate our growing needs within the building.
Yeah, I guess I am in supporting this in the budget. I supported the renovations to the east and west wings, and I thought what were going to be minimal renovations to this. And so I'm uncomfortable with a $500,000 renovation here when the ECC room isn't done. I think that room, that emergency command center, is a higher priority than the council chamber renovations. Although I do support the AV upgrades. Yeah, I'm, at least for me at this point, I'm a little uncomfortable with this right now.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Mayor Janung.
Yeah, thank you. Can you, and building off of Councillor Reid's comment, so to upgrade the AV in here, which you've outlined as 40%, or the IT, sorry, is 40% of that $500,000 budget. What disruption in here does that cost or cause? Like it's concrete floors, it's ripping up everything in here.
Yeah, so there would be the flooring, raising council's platform, allowing us to do wiring underneath, because some of the discussion was having with the concrete floor, having to jackhammer areas out. So again, that's where we were trying to make a design that would limit the disruptions to the space, but also provide an enhanced space for the important business that occurs in this space.
I guess where I'm going is, Councillor Reid, I agree that, I mean, if we were to look at this in isolation and say in a perfect world, what would we do? And I understand the other renovations are taking place anyways, regardless of this. The ECC will be upgraded, etc. I agree with you on the sense of priority, but having visited, and this isn't about nice to have, this is about needs for me. Visiting other communities across the region. Now with CMRB, we actually go to each community across the region and sit in their council chambers, and I actually get to see what other communities have as far as audiovisual and IT and security for that matter. I didn't realize it, but we are decades behind. The other communities have what has been outlined by administration tonight with the laptops at each of the stations for council. It's way more interactive and way more user-friendly. Even from someone who doesn't use anything like that, I'm a paper person. So for me, it's more about modernizing our facility to enable us to meet the needs of our community as far as virtual options. We've talked about that with our procedural bylaw, committees, etc. Also, if we all know that we need upgrades in that regard already, so we're probably spending $200 or $1,000 more to just get that, and this is all disrupted and we put it back the way it is. I think we might as well get what we want at the same time. So it's not throwing money at something, it's actually spending good money after good money, is the way I'm kind of looking at this. The raised floor, I had a question about that and changing elevations, elected officials versus the rest of the room, but I understand that's more of a physical thing to allow stuff to be run underneath the floor so that we ever encounter this ever again in the future, it's not ripping up concrete, it's
correct
into the floor, okay. The more seating, I think we saw that tonight. I've heard this since 2002, when we renovated this place in the first place, so 22 years ago. That pillar has been an issue. It doesn't matter where you sit, one of us is in a blind spot, or someone in the gallery is in a blind spot. And that's, if we can, I think this plan alleviates that almost entirely. So the different entrances and the safety factor for me, as Councillor Flowers has outlined, it is increasingly present. We've encountered a few times ourselves in our tenure where there's been some uncomfortable interactions. I think if we can minimize those, and I think there's actually a requirement upon us as employers to ensure our staff, if we don't want to ensure our own safety, at least administration and the rest of those that present to council or do business in this room, their safety is ensured at the same time. So for me, as well as not wanting to swallow this pill as a bill, I think we're at a point where we have to, is where I'm at. So I like the design. Thank you for all the work that's gone into it. I think the alternative, as you've pointed out, is way more costly and way more disruptive. And I share Councillor Flowers' question around interim use. And I'm more inclined to have a temporary in-person solution, even if it's not ideal, that ensures that we continue to come together as a group. Thank you.
And we have explored, through the chair to you, Mayor Janag, we have explored both options again, as prepared in the report. It was to go for a virtual option. However, there's the ability to utilize other spaces as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Janag. Councillor Nagel.
I apologize, my voice is it's a little hoarse. I spoke against this, I think, during the budget deliberations. I'm still opposed to this investment. I think the plans are nice. I think it would be a very good result. I think it's the wrong priority for our community. I also think it sends the wrong message to our community. I think lots of families are suffering from a very serious affordability crisis in our country, and I think renovating a government headquarters like this is the wrong priority and the wrong way to spend. And $1.2 million was the total cost for this plus the other renovations. I don't think it's the right priority. I still feel that way.
Thank you, Councillor Nagel. Councillor Flowers.
Can I add one more thing?
I guess, yeah.
Did you want to talk first?
No.
I know Councillor Nagel doesn't like to spend money, but I'd like to add an idea. The theater needs a railing to walk down the stairs, and I wondered, as you're doing renovations, if that was something we could look at adding, because it's a safety factor, especially for seniors, and we have some events there.
I'll make a note of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Reid? I'll go after.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so I appreciate the mayor's comments. Again, I'm still kind of weighing the implications of this expenditure as it relates to our community, in particular, as Morgan suggested, what the public perception is. I guess it's I've still got to get my head around the want versus need. But I do agree with my colleagues that the virtual construction option is not one that I would support. I think we need, during this last year that we'll have together, to be together, and I think it's really important and critical that we find some alternative solution if the majority of council wishes to go ahead with this. So.
All right, Councillor Wilson.
Thanks. I thought I'd weigh in just after listening to everybody. I'm a fence sitter on this. I'm not quite sure how I feel about it. Could you help me understand if it's a no vote, if we end up not going through with any renovations, what the likelihood of, I don't know, audio video failure is? What's the impetus for the renovation in the first place, other than we talked about safety, we talked about gallery capacity. I appreciate those things. The technical end, and that's the live streaming and the ability just to communicate on microphones and screens in here. How likely is that to fail us if we don't go ahead with some sort of a renovation here?
Through the chair, Councillor Wilson, I'm probably not the expert in terms of the technology, but certainly through conversations, I think we've had some challenges, and everything that is in here has been sort of pieced together, and I think there's some challenges with that, and that's part of why we wanted to bring this. It is a comprehensive solution that really meets the needs for our community and the importance of the meetings that occur in this space.
And if we were to go ahead and do just the half measure, which would be identifying the exact immediate need, which is the IT, I think we already outlined 40% of 500,000 is 200,000 to do the most immediate
And that's
things?
some of the additional information that we could bring back if council wished.
As a fence sitter here, and it seems like there's, I don't know, there's opinions on both sides, that would be useful to me just to know that third option of what's the Band-Aid solution if we, and is it possible just to say no altogether? Honestly, I'm not quite sure what the consequences are of an outright no with no audio video upgrades either, so maybe more information would help me for sure.
Certainly, and I think if council were not to support this, and again, we wanted to bring this as information, we had made that commitment. Again, there is the potential of failure in the system and what the implications of that would be, and then we have to make those repairs. So that's just one part of it, but certainly opportunity to bring additional information back for council's consideration.
Finally, the last thing on my mind is, like all projects we do, when we defer, they seem to get more expensive in the future, but I'm sure that's just an inflationary cost we can expect, that at some point renovations will need to be done. More information would help me understand how long that can be stretched out, I suppose, is really what I'm looking for. But I appreciate the presentation. This was what we asked for during budget. This was something we conditionally put into the budget because we weren't sure. We asked for more information, and now I'm asking for more. Appreciate you coming to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. I understand, Ms. Lowe, you want to provide some context for us?
Yeah, I may be able to provide some additional information through the chair. My understanding from information from Ms. Robertson is that 200,000 of the 500,000 is the required reconfiguration so that the wiring and everything can occur for the $300,000 technical upgrade that's required in this room. Without the $200,000 investment, that $300,000 will increase exponentially due to the limitations that currently exist in here.
If I may, I apologize. If I may also add, just based on some of Councillor Wilson's comments that may be helpful for council is, so this project, while we noted some deficiencies in this space, whether it was just spatial usage is not very efficient, the safety elements are deficient, the IT is deficient. This project was largely driven by the fact that we were doing other renovations in the building and economies of scale when you're bringing in contractors and all those types of things. And so beyond just the normal inflationary factors, it will be additionally expensive to bring in a project-specific outcome. And so I just really implore council to consider the practicality of doing this. This is a practical project, not a vanity project or a luxury project. This is to increase the efficiency of a space where some of the most important business that the organization engages in happens, and to have that safe, publicly accessible, increased modernization in terms of the technology. Those are all practical considerations that can be accomplished at this point for the most efficient and most effective outcome possible. And really that is driven by the public interest, not anything other than that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Derricott. I will just share my thoughts before we go another couple rounds, looks like. So I certainly understand this, the economy of scale is fine. I certainly agree with the safety factor. I mean, society has changed. This is, it's now become a riskier job for sure. So I think that's important that we consider that the safety investment in the room. I certainly also appreciate the ability to get more of our residents into the room. We saw that tonight. It's great to have 40 or 50 people that want to come and listen to us even for 10 minutes. So it'd be great to have that space in it. And we certainly need the technological investment in that. It's an important part of how we do our business. So from those philosophies, I support those. I'm very uncomfortable with the layout of the room, in that one of my philosophies, of course, is that council is here to serve. And I think if we want to help improve the civic discourse, the room needs to be designed kind of around the public. And so what I find uncomfortable with this is the raised aspect of the bench, but also the fact that our presenters and our public are going to be like off to the right and to the side. And I think that that our residents, our presenters, our publics, the room should be more about them and less about council and admin. So that's my feedback on that. From a philosophy standpoint of increasing and making sure that we don't fail from a technological capacity, I agree with safety and increasing access, but the layout doesn't work for me at all. So that's my feedback at this point. Councillor Nagel?
I don't want to sound like flippant, and I take no pleasure in sounding flippant or cheeky or anything, but honestly, like I work in digital media, and I have a hard time believing that we can't come up with some technical solution that doesn't cost $200,000. Like in the world of webcams and microphones and stands, and where like Zoom and Google Meets and Teams and free software like OBS can just do like so much heavy lifting for video that you can host on YouTube and just like upload the files. So much of the software and the hardware is so accessible. They just have such a hard time believing we actually need to spend $200,000 on audio video equipment, unless we need to go, we're trying to go with like the Cadillac, most convenient, most awesome setup. And I feel like if we are truly leaning on, well, we're gonna have to replace our technology, I feel like it should be like hundreds of dollars per seat, not thousands of dollars per seat. Or it's tens of thousands of dollars per seat, actually. And again, like I'm not trying to be flippant or dismissive. I feel like there must be a more creative way than spending $200,000 to make our audio and video better in here.
Yeah, Councillor Nagel, it's not an area of expertise for me, but I certainly also have that experience that that seems to be a cheaper way of doing business, not a more expensive, so I'd love to get some more feedback on that. Councillor Reid, over to you.
Yeah, just wanted to go back to one of the earlier points I made, and that was to remind council that at least the background document indicates the development of the expanded ECE will not be pursued at this time. And so that was one of the original things that was supposed to be part of the package. And so is this going to be another $500,000 request coming later in the budget to address that? And if so, we should be made aware of that now.
No, Councillor Reid, the intent here is in the event, as within the emergency last fall, we used the ABC rooms within Ranch House because our current ECC is not suitable to meet the needs of us, and the space just isn't adequate. So again, we did consider doing a renovation to the basement. However, that would be a significant renovation, and we felt that this was more of a priority, as we're also exploring future operations center and things of that nature, which will bring more information for council at a later date.
So to be clear then, where it says the development of the expanded ECC will not be pursued at this time, this suggests that then there is something coming forward, an additional expense to council in terms of this renovation budget that we subsequently approved that was supposed to include that, but now doesn't.
No, I'll jump in there, Mr. Hindman. No, there is no additional budget, Councillor Reid, just to follow up on what Mr. Hindman said. Any additional development of another space would only be done in conjunction with some future facility and would be encapsulated in inside that project cost. There's no follow-up budget request anticipated as part of this.
Okay, so then the line that says the development of the expanded ECC will not be presented as signed, it basically is not being expanded then. Is that what we're saying?
That is correct.
Okay. And then the other thing is just back to Tara's comment. I mean, if we're getting into the weeds of this, the design, where you have administration, if the platform isn't raised, then nobody in the gallery is going to be able to see council beyond the administrative people. And I agree with Tara that having the guest way over on the right and what would be the councillor on the far left would be, it'd be really awkward in terms of the visual, in terms of presentation. And yeah, I don't know, maybe this is what I have no idea what other councils use or what their design looks like, Jeff, but I mean, is this kind of what you see elsewhere, really? Wow, and it works. Okay, thank you.
Mayor Janung.
Yeah, just a question. Ms. Lowe, you had some comments about the cost of upgrading the IT. I just want to reflect on Bill 20. Like we are obligated under that bill, under that legislation, to provide a virtual option for public hearings, correct?
That is correct.
So with that legislation, we are obligated to do an upgrade. Is that how I'm understanding? Like outside of this renovation, we have money to spend on an IT upgrade.
Through the chair, without the regulations that correspond with the Bill 20 update, it's hard to know, but certainly the way that Bill 20 reads right now, the intention is that municipal councils provide the opportunity for interactive public hearings, which also require those that are participating virtually to be able to see and hear all of those that are actively participating in the meeting, and vice versa, where with our current technology and our camera set up in this room because of the configuration and some of the limitations that we have because of the piecemealing of the electrical, we don't have that functionality as it stands right now, nor could we create it.
Right, okay, so I just wanted to remind council that we're up against that. We don't know exactly what they're asking provincially, but that's with my interactions with Minister McIver, that is certainly what they're implying, is that we provide that option to our residents. So again, not a gun to our head, but we're going to be pressed with having to do an upgrade here anyways. So I think what Mr. Derricott's saying is exactly where I'm leaning, is that it's not something that if we were looking at it in isolation, would I prioritize financial commitment at this time. But given the scale of the other renovations that are happening here and the contractors on site, inflationary pressures that you've outlined, Councillor Wilson, and then given the fact we got to spend something to get an upgrade here, I think it just makes sense that we do it all now and get it done. I'm not going to repeat myself.
Thank you, Mayor Janone. Councillor Flowers.
Last thing, I'm still in favor after hearing everything. I think we should go ahead with it for the safety reasons that have been discussed. I just wondered about the drawing, whether it would be possible to have half of the admin on either side with the guest in the middle, so that it's split. Just a thought.
Thank you. I think so. It's a relatively simple exercise to move where the guest podium is from the right to the center there. But the idea is that they wouldn't be entering the admin secure space, but we could certainly configure it so that that podium was central. In fact, that was a conversation we had as part of this. So the feedback is certainly noted, and that's not a difficult thing to do, to end up with the public speaker closer to the center, and certainly acknowledge the feedback there.
All right, thank you very much. So it looks like that's the last of the comments from council tonight. I'm not sure that you got a resounding yes on that, but you did get the feedback.
Well, I think we need to know from council whether or not there's a support to proceed, or if more information is required, or if there's another action that needs to be taken. So we would need some pretty clear direction from council on how they want to proceed. As it stands right now, it's an approved budget item. We can certainly go away and execute this, but we would want to ensure that that was supported from council, or if there's more information that's required at that. I mean, there's been comments about that, but it's a little bit unclear as to what that information might be that we could bring back. So just looking for clarity on the next steps, next actions.
Excellent. Yeah, a little bit awkward to do in a meeting where we're not supposed to give direction. Councillor Nagel.
So on this provincial regulation that the mayor mentioned that is expected to be passed or might be passed, when is that coming, and do we actually have an obligation today to provide a remote opportunity for public hearings?
So the legislation, Bill 20, provides that requirement. Our understanding is that it's intended to receive royal assent in the next month. My comment about the regulation is we're not sure how much time they're going to provide municipalities to actually implement that option, but it is a requirement within the legislation as drafted right now.
So yeah, so because we don't have specific requirements around it, I don't feel like I could make a decision on what we think might be in this legislation, what the requirements might be. But if we did have to provide a solution for remote public hearings, what's to stop us to just putting everybody in a Zoom meeting, including council and the person who wants to speak, and plug in a speaker into one of the computers?
So through the chair, I certainly appreciate your sentiment, Councillor Nagel. The bill is very clear that it is going to be a requirement once the bill is passed, that we will have to facilitate the opportunity for people to participate virtually. Whether or not council chooses to have all of their public hearings virtually through a Zoom meeting, that is absolutely the discretion of council. But I would suggest that the sentiment from council thus far has been that you continue to want to provide that in-person public opportunity. So I guess it would just be a change in your process.
Councillor Wilson.
I just wanted to respond to the extra information I was asking for, because that's a fair question. I think the two things for me is what does the economy of scale currently look like? Are we talking just in a percentage? Is it 10% cost increase if we don't do it right now, we do it next year, and we don't have the people here that are currently doing the construction? I have no idea what that looks like, so just how consequential is that, A? And then B, what's the likelihood of failure of our current system? I don't understand how urgent of a need this is, and that's hindering my decision-making as well. And I guess the third point I'd make is that most of these decisions are going to be for principally the next council. It's not like we're voting ourselves a comfort project here or something. It's how well does this room function for upcoming councils that won't be this one, and those two pieces of information will help me make a better decision, I think. I hope I was clear enough about them, but economy of scale and likelihood of failure of our current technology, and lifespan of that failure. Is it likely to fail in the next 2 years, and how likely is that? Something like that.
Okay. So I think, yes, you've been clear on what further details you would be looking for. Councillor Reid?
Yeah, I guess, well, I appreciate all the arguments for the need over want. I get all that, and I appreciate that, and I'm not really comfortable with the design per se. But yeah, I mean, you know, I'm just reluctant to spend $500,000 on this, but willing to support it to see it go ahead. I mean, I'll be honest, I will be really upset if the timelines or the budget goes over. And in fact, I will not support any budget overreach in terms of this, so it better come in on budget. But yeah, I'm not really crazy about going forward with it, but I think that it's almost like a necessary evil, if you will, so for me.
Okay. Mayor Janum?
Yeah, I have spoken in favor of the project, but out of respect for what Councillor Wilson's asking, I think having most of us on side makes more sense, and if we have more information that enables people to make a more informed decision, I would add the Bill 20 requirements to Councillor Wilson's list, and just so we're clear on what they are and what what will we have to spend regardless of a renovation. And then I think we can weigh those costs versus the full renovation costs, and then make a decision on, okay, we got to do this, so why does it make sense to do more? That's, I think, at a future meeting, maybe another committee of the whole in the next week or so. I don't know what the turnaround on those are. I don't want to put pressure on that, but also I think you guys need to have direction to line up contractors and get stuff going, so ASAP.
If I could, there is a comprehensive report on Bill 20 and the impacts, both organizationally and from a community perspective, that is planned for your next committee of the whole. So certainly we can see if we can correspond and bring this report back as well.
Perfect.
So yeah, I think we've kind of heard that information there. I think perhaps when you're getting quotes or pricing on what the tech solution might be, I don't know if Councillor Nagel, you want to see another option, or are you just, is there information there that would move you to a point of comfort with the project?
Waiting for me. There we go. Probably not an opportunity. I think that's going to move me to a point of comfort, because I think it's just a choice. It's like, does council want to hack it together to save $200,000 or do something nice? And I feel like I'm the only person prepared to get the duct tape out. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have that context. Yeah, and so when you come back with that information, alternate or some options on room design would help me with my comfort level. Mr. Darracott, did we land that a little bit more clearly for the group?
That's very helpful, thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, moving on to, the night keeps getting more exciting. 5F, Bylaw 17, procedural bylaw. Calling Ms. Robertson, our Director of Ledge and Administrative Services.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor, Mr. Mayor, members of council. In your agenda package this evening is the red line version of the procedural bylaw with the changes identified by council when the bylaw was last before you. As you know, the procedural bylaw is council's key tool to ensure effective and efficient meetings. Since this bylaw was last before you, administration has revised areas where we felt there was a general consensus for changes. We're working to balance intent versus language in section 4.5 removing items as council requested, including removal of limiting the use of handheld devices and the implementation of a dress code. We've expanded on the pecuniary interest section to better reflect what is within the MGA and added a section on conflict of interest as was included in Bill 20, which has already received third reading and is simply awaiting royal assent. We have worked to provide greater clarity around notice of motions that reflect the will of a majority of council. Items that did not have clear majority direction, like delegation of cancellation of meetings to the mayor and the consent agenda information, have not been revised or included and require additional feedback from council to proceed. I'm also looking to council for your thoughts on the proposed edits as captured in the revised bylaw to ensure they accurately reflect the will of council ahead of this bylaw coming back for second and third reading. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments council wishes to provide.
Right, thank you very much. Not seeing any comments or feedback right now, which is fair as I think everybody catches up to it. A lot of this is in response to comments I had provided, so I appreciate that. So you just provide some clarity. So the for those items where we didn't get the consensus on, so that would be part of kind of the debate that council would look at the next council meeting?
What we were looking for, because we had multiple members of administration taking active notes during the discussion at the last council meeting on this bylaw. And so where we found consensus to those things, we created those revisions in the red line version that's in the package this evening.
Right.
There were some things specific to consent agendas and the cancellation of the meetings being delegated to the mayor, where there didn't seem to be consistent consent across council, and therefore those revisions are not reflected in the red line version you see. So if we get the sense this evening, because there was a lot of moving parts at the last council meeting, if we get the sense that you'd like those removed or revised, we'll certainly bring that forward as part of a final version of this procedural bylaw to the next meeting for second and third reading consideration.
So, yeah, I would like to, if we could get, like, I know the mayor has seen the consent agenda, and I think I've been a part of different meetings in the past where they had the consent agenda. Perhaps if we could provide some information to all of council of what that looks like and the kind of the pros and cons of the consent agenda for discussion when that comes back to council for debate would be great. And yeah, and I'm still firmly, like, with the cancellation of meetings, that came about, like, because I went and did research with municipal affairs on that piece, and they provided advice that the only way you could cancel a meeting was through special meetings, and had provided advice on that. And one of the things that the advisor said that really resonated with me is that the agenda doesn't belong to any one member. The agenda belongs to all of council. And so, yeah, I'm firmly against that ability of one member of our council to cancel meetings unless, you know, we do have the emergencies that make sense to me. But, so those two pieces, you know, I'd certainly continue the discussion with my colleagues on. The rest of it, like on the quick scan on the weekend, I think you kind of captured most of my comfort levels, so thank you for that.
And just for clarity as well, we did get legal advice on the delegation of the authority to the mayor as we went through this process revising. Certainly, it's the will of council that prevails, but we did get legal advice that council can delegate that authority should they wish to, which is how the wording of that section of the procedural came into being.
Yeah, no, and I understood that they could delegate it if they wish, and that we hadn't at this point enabled that piece. I'm just very uncomfortable with it, is where the debate point is coming from. And so I do appreciate that context. But we have managed to get my colleagues ready to chat about the item. So I will turn it over to the rest of the bench. Councillor Flowers.
Okay, I'd like to leave it that the mayor can cancel the meeting, because I don't want to have a meeting if we don't need one or shouldn't be having one, or have a meeting to cancel a meeting. We have enough trouble getting people to come to meetings as it is. So I'd like to leave that, but there was something in here which I can't find right now, where it said that if we had some news or some council had some information that they wanted to share, that they had to put it in writing ahead of time. and have it ready for the agenda, and I really don't like that. I think we have so few opportunities to share what we're doing, and sometimes it's not timely if you have to get it in or you forget to put it in. I think a lot of people won't even put any in, so I'd like to take that part out. I'd like to hear what others have to say.
Certainly, and just to address that, Councillor Flowers, that was brought up at the last council meeting, which is why it was added to this, not as a means of eliminating council's opportunity to speak at a meeting, but to enhance what they might be saying so that they can generate that report, get it in writing in the public-facing agenda, and then also speak where there may be a disconnect between when you attended something in your role as councillor and when the agenda report was created. You still have that opportunity, so we wouldn't be limiting council's ability to speak in that space.
So Councillor Flowers, and you're comfortable with that? Okay. Yeah, my intent certainly bringing that forward was in addition to, and also a better way to actually get it into the public record, because unless you stay up all night and watch our last minute, 2-minute spiels, you won't catch it. And I don't know if anybody does that. Councillor Reid?
Yeah, I appreciate the clarity on that last point. That was of interest to me as well. I also support Councillor McFadden's clarity around consent agenda. I think it is something that council should consider moving forward, but I think it's appropriate to know the pros and cons. I also support the delegation of the authority the mayor has previously written, as just in terms of where my vote lines on that. I don't think we've had any problems with the issue in the past. I don't see any problems going forward, and I also think to set procedure in place is just bureaucratic and an unnecessary step in terms of bureaucracy, so I support the way you had originally written it.
Thank you. Councillor Nagel?
I think I know the answer already, because I think council can't make decisions in a non-public meeting. But my question is whether or not we can have a mechanism to cancel meetings via email with a vote. I've been on boards before where there's a process in place where someone will email out and say, we need to make this decision. Could do a special resolution via email. Is that something that can be done?
I don't believe that can be captured within the MGA and was not brought up when we asked for legal review of this item. Okay.
Okay, well, then I think there's a lot of positive changes that I appreciate, so thank you. In what I'm looking at, the red lines. So thanks. I have no other comments. I guess I will provide clarity. I think I would like the ability for somebody to be able to cancel the meetings in the event of an emergency or a change or something. I also see your points, Councilor McFadden. I was hoping my email ID would be some sort of tool. I don't know if anybody else has any other ideas, but I guess if I had to choose something without any other better ideas, I think I would err towards letting the mayor cancel the meeting, sorry. But
so it's certainly my understanding that currently in an emergency, the mayor can do that. So this is just because the idea, as when it was first mentioned here, was that if there isn't enough on the agenda, that it would be canceled. And I can't imagine a case in which the town of Cochrane right now doesn't have work to do. I'll stop though. Councilor Nicol.
If I may, this is, as I've thought a little bit about this particular piece, and again, just as consideration is, I think the flexibility to adjust meeting schedules is a practical piece, but if there's a concern of a limiting factor, perhaps it's more about, the mayor not having the ability to cancel subsequent meetings or something of that nature. I mean, again, I don't want to get too carried away with the moderation of the language or trying to produce some kind of list of circumstances as part of it. But I think that's really the only true risk I see is some mayor, for some reason, has I don't want council to meet for a purpose, so I'm just going to cancel the next 7 meetings or something like that. Is that the circumstance that you're worried about, Councillor McFadden, that would need some limiting language around it?
No, that is not the concern that I have. The concern that I have is that we've been elected to serve the people of Cochrane. We have a number of council meetings where we make decisions. It is the expectation that council show up to make those decisions. We're a population of 37,000. I can't imagine that we don't have important issues to make twice a month for, 10.5 months. So I feel that the council meetings is the important core part of our job, and that our agendas should be designed so that those core meetings, those core decisions are made on those timelines. And it's my expectation that we continue to serve the needs of 37,000 people. I can't imagine a point where we don't have enough to discuss or decisions to be made that we can't fill that much work in our timeline. So no, it's not a matter of whether I'm concerned somebody's going to run away and cancel all the council meetings. It's a matter that I think this is our job, to show up and to make decisions. So we can continue that debate. If you could perhaps provide some context, whether any other municipality has given this authority, delegated this authority to the mayor. I'm not aware of any, but if any of our comparables are doing some, I would like to know that.
I'll get that information for you.
Thank you very much. Mayor Janung.
Yeah, council, I think we need to move on. Like, can we make a decision on our procedural bylaw and govern ourselves, and then please just follow those rules? We've been talking about this more than most of the other bigger issues that we have in our community. I believe it's important. For example, clearing up the notice of motion process. This document in front of us does that. Let's pick this, let's move on so that we know what guidelines we're working within, and then get back to work. Talking about our own procedural bylaw at length is, it frustrates me, to be honest. I don't know what problem we're trying to solve with taking the ability to cancel a meeting away from the mayor. I feel like it's more of a trust issue with the mayor position than it is with actually good governance. I don't know what problem we've had in the past 7 years where we've encountered this. There's been one meeting that was canceled that had one agenda item on it. And if that's the issue, then let's revert back to the call a meeting, get together, and cancel the next meeting. It just, as Councillor Reid has pointed out, that makes no sense to me. But I will follow the rules of which council likes to govern itself by, but I think we need to stop talking about it and just get to work. For me, I think the easier we can make this document to maneuver inside, the better. So regardless of whatever you guys want to pick for positions, I'll follow it, but it makes no sense to me to take that away. I think it sounds funny to be talking about it because it really comes to, like, Councillor McFadden, I agree with you. Everything you said about getting the business done in the community, I agree with. So I don't, as a mayor, I don't know why I would cancel a meeting because. So I don't understand your logic around whether that is appropriate or not, and use of a position. And I would say if the mayor is out of town, that would fall to the deputy mayor. So it's not even about the person in the position. It is about it's about streamlining and having good governance and removing red tape from our own process. So I'm at a different side of the table, I guess, from you on that one. So I would like it to remain as is. It's a problem we haven't had, in my opinion. So what are we trying to solve? Consent agenda, sure, let's put it in there. I think it is a small improvement in efficiency, but I could also see us getting bogged down by that because generally having something in a consent agenda means you're assumed to have read that and agree with it. And a lot of the times, say in the CMRB table, the financial Q1 quarterly reports are in those consent agendas, and it's already gone through committee, so we don't look at it again in the board level. So I don't know if that will actually streamline our council process. The only things I see on our agendas that we could really consent to are the agenda itself and the previous minutes, so it would save us one vote. Unless council really wants to start moving other things into that, which we could, and I'm in favor of that, but we haven't given much conversation to that. So I almost think that's unless we want to talk about this for the rest of our term, let's park that one and bring it back and amend this bylaw after we pass it and add that secondarily, because I think that's a bigger conversation. But I just want us to move on with this. I think we've talked about it enough. Let's just pick something and move on with it. And I hope that we can get through that discussion tonight and that we are set up for a second reading at the next meeting or whenever it's gonna come back, and pass the damn thing. I'm out. Mic drop.
If I may, just for clarity, the research I've done on consent agenda, it would be, in my estimation, less effective here for the town of Cochrane. The agenda actually can't be adopted within the consent agenda. It has to be adopted separately because council has to have the opportunity to remove items that are in the consent agenda for greater discussion. Because within the consent agenda, there is no discussion on the items that come forward. And with the inclusion of the committee of the whole meetings, where the bulk of the except for information reports come forward, there isn't generally except for information reports within a council agenda. It would be minimal, and I would suggest that when I've seen these come forward, council has had healthy debate on those items, even though they're except for information. So you can do a first reading of a bylaw, but not all the readings of a bylaw. There are some limitations to what can go within the consent agenda. And so I do believe it may be something that council, we may want to dive deeper into, but I'm not certain that as the town of Cochrane, that process makes as much sense as it does in communities that don't have the standalone committee of the whole meeting where an extensive amount of information is brought forward. I can certainly bring more, but that's just my initial thoughts on the consent agenda.
No, and I certainly appreciate that. Like I said, I've been at different meetings where they've been used, and then certainly the context of the committee of the whole changes the lens for the town of Cochrane, so I do appreciate that feedback. Councillor Nagel.
I feel the tensions in the room rising. I actually have a much lighter comment on this matter, and I'd hope to buzz in to share it here a few moments ago. I do actually have a scenario that's a non-emergency where I would hope that the mayor would be able to cancel a meeting.
It can't be for your birthday.
No, it is. There is a potential scenario where the Edmonton Oilers are in Game 7 at the next meeting to win the Stanley Cup in a historic Game 7 reverse sweeps, first time since 1942. And I believe under such circumstances, our constituents would want us cheering for our province and country instead of debating bylaws. But I do have an example, a very real one, that is not a local state of emergency where I would like the mayor to defer our meeting. And it is next week, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Go Oilers.
If that happened, it would be an emergency. Councillor Wilson.
I haven't weighed in because it looks good to me, and I'm happy to vote it in at our next council meeting as presented.
Thank you. All right, I see no more comments on that. Thank you very much for your presentation and your time tonight. I appreciate it. Councillor Reid.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's the hour. But yeah, I would, my earlier comments were about getting some additional information about consent agenda. I'm prepared to just move on. I am getting fatigued of all this discussion as well. So just add that to the flurry of tonight's comments.
All right, thank you very much. So we are then moving on to our last item, number 6.
If I may, I'm not sure, Ms. Robertson, you're clear on what you're doing next. I'm not. I think we've had 3 members of council suggest they're ready to move on as is. But otherwise, are we bringing back more information, or are we bringing this forward to a council meeting for adoption? I think we just need some clarity on that.
Councillor Flowers.
We're looking for numbers. I'm ready to move on as well. I can live with it the way it is.
Councillor Nagel.
I am also ready to move on. Sorry, I was not clear.
Mayor Janelle.
Adopt.
There you go. Councillor Reid.
I suggested earlier, I'm prepared to move on. Just move on.
We're good? All right. Thank you. Let's then, moving on to item 6 in camera. It's 9:29. So ask for a motion to go in camera. Moved by Mayor Janelle.
No, it's not, because it's closed session. No. Oh, yeah, you're right.
All in favor? All in favor, gentlemen? Passed unanimously.